As few I was expecting.
Ready as we're gonna be. We have a really good plan in place.
I was thinking about maybe just dropping in with my drone because there'd be no place to come.
Good evening, everyone. Tonight is the meeting of the Yarmouth Select Board for September 10th, 2024. It is now 6 o'clock. We are in the Town Hall hearing room, and this is to formally advise that as required by General Laws, Chapter 30A, chapters 18 through, sections 18 through 25, and pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, an act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, signed into law on June 16, 2021, as extended by Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, the Yarmouth Select Board will hold a public meeting on Tuesday, September 10, 2024, at 6 p.m. in the hearing room at the Yarmouth Town Hall, 1146 Route 28, South Yarmouth, Mass. 02664. The public is welcome to attend either in person or via the alternative public access provided at the town website. Okay. And if I could ask us all to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And if we could just take a moment of silence for Mike. This is really our first time. So just a moment of silence for Mike Stone, please. Thank you. Our thoughts go out to the family. He is greatly missed.
Madam Chair, can I ask that we also take a moment of silence for Mr. Peter Carnes, our former police chief?
You may indeed.
I think it's appropriate.
A moment of silence for Peter Carnes. Our thoughts and prayers are with the family. There is a wake tomorrow evening at Hallett's Funeral Home, which will commence at 4 o'clock to 7. And there is a funeral service that will be held on Thursday at the Lutheran Church in West Barnstable at, I believe, 11 a.m.? At 11 a.m. Thank you very much. We'll start our agenda with announcements.
I have one announcement. Madam Chairman, I'd like to take a moment of the board to introduce everyone to my left, Amber Thomas, our new licensing coordinator, who's joining us at the big table here, and she's been with the town approximately 30 days or so, and it's just amazing how far she's come in that short period of time. I know we'll probably be too busy later on to welcome her, but I'd like to welcome her and hope she has a long tenure. And in welcoming Amber, I also want to acknowledge Pam Barnes, who I think is in the room with us this evening. Since Dakota's resignation, she has really stepped right in to handle all of the licensing plus her normal duties, and then has been working to help train up Amber. Just done such a great job, and our hats off to you, Pam, once again, stepping into the breach, so thank you very much.
Welcome, Amber.
Thank you.
Welcome, Amber, and thank you.
And thank you for the help you've already given me.
Yeah, no problem.
And thank you very much to Pam, who stepped into the breach. Do we have any public comments?
I see one hand.
Okay. Tom Nicanello?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, everyone. Tom Nicanello from the very historic village of Bass River. And I say that because at one time we were the salt king capital of the United States. And we pumped out a lot of salt, and that is very historic. It's also just last Tuesday, if I could just remember September 3rd, 385 years ago is our town's birthday. In a short 15 years, we'll be celebrating 400 years in Yarmouth, along with Sandwich and along with Barnstable. And as you all may remember, Plymouth spent a lot of money and a lot of time preparing for their 400th anniversary, and the pandemic came and wiped it all out. So in 15 years, we have a chance to re-engage the world with Cape Cod for 400 years of existence and the founder of the United States, which is very important. History is extremely important, and as I say, I love history because one day I will be history. But anyways, with that, I just want to make a little comment about our libraries. I was here a few meetings ago, and I asked the public to come down and make some comments about their libraries. As you know, our libraries, along with the drive-in site, has been two issues that have been in our community, and we haven't really tackled them. And now, with the drive-in site coming online, and we have library studies, we still have to find out what we're going to do with our libraries. As I was running for the Select Board back in March, I had some opportunity to talk to our residents, and there were some great plans out there from people, and I wish they would come down and spend 3 minutes and let you know how they feel. But our library is extremely important, and what I found out is the common goals that we all have. One, we all like our libraries in our villages. Two, we all think our libraries are too small in our villages. And three, I think everyone had a consensus that they would like a library that suits their needs. So with that, if we have 4 libraries in town, that's not a bad thing. We'll have one that's big, accessible, 30,000 square feet. Maybe that's what was designed for. It would help our youth grow, and it would provide our citizens a place to actually meet and be a functional meeting space. The libraries we have, as you all know, South Yarmouth is 1850, very historic. West Yarmouth, 1946, donated by a community member to the town. And then the one over in Yarmouthport is 1871. These are very milestones and extremely important assets to our community. If we do find a new library spot, that would be the main library, and these other libraries could be a satellite. South Yarmouth Library could be split in two for a museum and a library, like the one in Yarmouthport. If you go to the assessor's page on the property, it's already listed as a museum, library, and museum. These are very crucial parts of our community, libraries and museums. However, we don't really have a museum to show our artifacts for the 400 years we've been here, and it's a shame. We need to have a history, a museum of history. One thought that one of our constituents had told me, I'll wrap it up, a few minutes, was that the senior center in the middle of town would make a great library. You can get there in July and August, you can get there on a bike trail, and it would be accessible to everybody. I asked, well, what about the senior center? The senior center could probably be maybe located at the Matakee site, and it could be a community and senior center. If you look prior, about 4 years ago, we did a visioning statement, and there was comments in there saying that the seniors wanted to engage with the younger people. So without fairness, we should have a discussion about joining those two together. And then last note, quickly, is we have $1 million between two libraries right now. If we do go into the fourth library, we're going to have to really examine how we're going to fund that library, and we should actually take the library back from Yarmouthport. So with that, I bid you all farewell. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Joe Glenn, I see you have your hand up. You need to unmute yourself. There you go.
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you very much. And thank you also for recognizing and having those moment of silence for those two great men. I just now got out of the Yarmouth Housing Authority meeting, so I know the Board of Selectmen have, or the Select Board, have always wanted updated information. So you'll get no more quicker updated information because we got out at 6:01 and I logged on to this meeting. We voted to send up our parameters to the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Community, formerly known as DHCD, and those they will come back to us, and it would come back in the form of an RFP to our board. We had community members at our meeting and that have spoken to the town before. So they have they want to make sure that there's a dialogue between us, between the Housing Authority Commissioners and the board, and we'd like that too. So this is that type of information that's public knowledge that we couldn't do before. So that's the most updated information. I also wanted to congratulate Officer Chris Capobianco, which I think you're going to acknowledge later on, and a great officer also, and it'd be the community's loss for not having him here, but I'm sure he'll still be greatly involved in the community. But as I say to all people who are retired, as a retiree, once you retire, you don't get a day off. So that's the couple of things that I had. Also, I know you're going to be speaking about filling the vacancy of Mike Stone. I was careful not to say replacing, but filling the vacancy upon Mike's passing. I think we might have missed the vote and gone beyond the point of no return. As I read the charter, it's 90 days from the vacancy that you need to have an election. And I understand that there'd be expedited nomination papers, but I think it would be saving the town a lot of energy and money and involvement if we had synchronized it with the presidential election. And I think we could have did that. We may not have been able to do that now, or might not be able to do that now, but if we did that, you would have had an emergency meeting or decided to go from the 90 days upon the vacancy, it would have gave more time for the nomination papers. I think it could still be done. I hope that it would be done because we're not going to have a turnout in December. We're going to have to open the polls up and pay the cost of all of that. And then even though people have said by mail-in ballots that they're wanted to get their ballots for all elections, that wouldn't be the case in this year. You gave it to them during the election in May, but you wouldn't be given to them for this election. And I think that's a shame. You're going to have a much lower turnout, and there was a great turnout for Select Board member Post and Flynn, and that's a good thing because all those people that were involved in that election. So I hope that when you're considering it, that you try to do it to save the town money. But that's my opinion. I think you can pull it off still, but I trust you'll do the right thing for the town. But thank you very much, Madam Chair, and congratulations to Officer Capobianco.
Thank you, Joe. Actually, we will, on the agenda a little later, Mary Maslowski will actually be addressing that, and we'll be hearing from Mary in her comments, and then the comments of the board. We have some really wonderful news to share with everyone tonight. It's a retirement recognition. I shouldn't say really wonderful because we're losing them. I mean, Chris Capobianco has been with us for...
Oh, somebody has public comment, I guess.
Oh, I'm sorry, Nate. Go right ahead. Forgive me.
Nathan Ladley, Precinct 3, and I'm also on the Finance Committee. I was looking at your list for topics for your possible fall meeting. We have had numerous discussions at the Finance Committee and personally about Manikes. Manikes is costing the taxpayers about $3,900 a week, every week that we don't do something with it. We knew it was coming in 18. It's here now. It's been here for a year. You had a discussion at town meeting where you asked for volunteers to work on the Manikes Committee. As of our meeting last week, nobody had been talked to, nobody had been asked to serve. We're wasting money. The building was said it couldn't be rehabbed when DY looked at it. It couldn't have gotten any better between now and then. So a lot of towns have had the same situation, and after spending $1 million or something knocking it down, I think we need to add it to our thing here to try to figure out what to do with it. I mean, $4,000 a week's a lot of money that we could use someplace else in the town. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. Chris Capobianco, 38 years of service. Cheryl Jacobson, 41 years of service. I see that the chief is already coming up to the podium so he can really fill us in on these two amazing people that have been with us this long.
Yes, thank you. So it's suffice to say that one of these two people helped me start my career, and the other one helped me keep it. So we'll start with Capo. So Chris Capobianco is affectionately known as Capo. He 38 incredible years with the town of Yarmouth. He started as a reserve officer in 1979, went full-time in 1984. He served as a patrol officer, a field training officer, a bike patrol officer, and he was the lead crisis negotiator for the Cape Cod Regional SWAT team. And he was also our court prosecutor. I've said this story before, but I'll say it one more time. I was lucky enough to get hired by the town of Yarmouth in 1993. I walked through the doors of 424 Route 28 for a midnight shift, and the friendly face I saw standing there was Chris Capo. The only problem is Chris had suffered an injury a couple weeks prior, and the only way that Chief Chapman would allow him to come back is if he wore a helmet. So I walked into Yarmouth after coming from the town of Tisbury to see my FTO wearing a riot helmet. And I thought to myself, what did I get myself into? But Capo and I survived our 12-week training program together. He helped me learn the town of Yarmouth, learn the Yarmouth way, and it has served me well. His service has gone far beyond his badge. He's been a mentor, a coach, a community leader, and a friend to very many people. So we will miss you, Capo. So congratulations on your retirement.
Could I stop you there for a moment, Chief, and just allow members of the board to make their comments also on his
Absolutely.
length of service? Mark?
We're going to miss you. And I think everybody really appreciates all the time, energy, and effort. You know, sacrificing is something that we don't talk often about, but the work that you've done involves a tremendous amount of sacrifice and support from friends and family particularly. So you're blessed to have that kind of support, and we very much appreciate everything that you've done for us. It's serving the town for this length of time. It goes by fast, and before you realize it, you've left a legacy here that you should be very proud of. all your support, all your advice, all your counsel, all your work will long be remembered. So thank you.
Tracy Post?
Thank you isn't enough. You guys, all in public safety, put your lives on the line every single day. I'm sure were nights, Mary Beth, worried about your safety, and I've had the ability to watch your children grow, and you have an amazing family, and, you know, like Chief said, you've been involved in so much, friends to so many. You're a funny guy. You always make always make everyone around you laugh. But you know, the impact that you've had on the youth in this town through coaching. I had the ability, my son played Little League at the same time Sammy was there, and so it's been great when you get to have relationships and know a lot of our officers outside of work because of the community involvement that you guys do. And I'm just so very grateful for everything that you've given and all of your time. I can't imagine having a 38-year career. And, you know, it's got to be awkward at times to not have to get up and go to work, but I hope you have a great golf game and stay safe.
Chris, I'd like to thank you for your decades of service, and especially for demonstrating during all those decades that public service could always be accompanied with a smile, and that there might be fun aspects to it. Thank you.
Chris, I don't know what we're going to do without you. You've been here for so long and have done such tremendous work for the town. Particularly for me, it's the mentoring that you've done and the working with the kids and developing those bonds and that relationship that's just so important. That's what makes a place like Yarmouth special. And I thank you very much, and I hope you have a great retirement. Thank you. Chief, can you tell us about our second individual here today?
Yes, thank you. So next is Cheryl Jacobson, but as we call her, CJ. 41 incredible years with the town of Yarmouth. She retired on August 5th. She was, but she is still a very important part of the police department because I did not let her go far. We hired a replacement for Cheryl, but Cheryl's coming back to help us build the budget because Cheryl's the only one that really knows how to build the budget. So we're not letting her get away too far right now. But Cheryl started with the town in 1983. She moved to the police department in 2006. And over the years, she had the distinct opportunity of training 3 chiefs on how to do the budget. You get so much training as you work your way through professionally, but when you step into that role and you sit down and have to look at all the numbers and how everything goes together, we needed somebody like Cheryl because she truly trained all of us to do it correctly. I would go into Cheryl and say, "Can we?" And she would say, "No." I would say, "Can't we?" And she would say, "No." So she truly kept me in the position that I'm in. Cheryl was responsible for paying bills, doing payroll, grant reporting, and management, working our training budget, budget preparation, and much, much more. Back in when she first started, I'm sure our budget was probably in the area about $4 or $5 million, and now it's at 9.4. And she ended her time with us, crunching the numbers and making sure that we were set going into the fiscal year. And she's going to be missed greatly. She has always approached her work with dedication and professionalism, and we are going to miss her, but we wish her well in her very deserved retirement. So Cheryl, thank you very much.
Yes, I too want to add my thanks for all of your service to the town. You know, budgeting sounds like a fairly routine and easy kind of job, but it's not. It's incredibly difficult. And, you know, this community has been well served by its police department over the years. And the unsung hero in this, quite frankly, is you, because you've helped put the pieces together and make it all work. And during some very, very difficult financial times, many of us can remember days where we were pinching pennies. We were having trouble keeping departments staffed, and we had very, very tough decisions to make here in this town. But you were incredibly helpful in making sure that our police department could stand strong and weather the financial storms. So you've done a great job. We're very appreciative of everything that you've done for the community and for the police department, and we wish you nothing but the best, really, in your future retirement.
Tracy Post?
So Cheryl, I don't know you very well at all, but I can tell you that in my years of contract negotiation, there were always things that we threw at prior chiefs that were very complicated. We switched shifts. Accruing vacation and sick time sometimes is seems simple on the surface, but there was never a time that they didn't take anything that we said and said, you know, we can get it done, because they knew they had you there, and that's what it came down to. So without the work that you do, all of them on the street aren't as strong. So it really is a team effort, and I just very much thank you for over 4 decades of service to our community. Appreciate everything.
Thank you, Tracy. Joyce?
Cheryl, it's lovely to see you again. I'm glad that you're getting public televised recognition of the event, in addition to that tasty cake that was in the shape of the Yarmouth Police emblem. I think it's so important that we recognize people like you as members of the law enforcement team, because if you've ever noticed, with all the television shows about police personnel, they never show the person who's like coordinating it all back in the office. And I propose that in your retirement, you write up something for a possible television show showing how crucial that is. Thank you.
Thank you. Cheryl, you are the guru of the numbers. You are clearly one of the most important people to the department. And as Mark was saying, you know, we went through some pretty tight times. And if it wasn't you there at the helm to help us with that, who knows what would have happened. You've really done a terrific job. Can't believe that you've had to train 3 chiefs. But 41 years of service is just an amazing amount of time in the town, and your dedication is greatly, greatly appreciated. Thank you, Cheryl. Now, I have some official citations from the Town of Yarmouth Select Board. Official citation: be it known that the Town of Yarmouth hereby recognizes Chris A. Capobianco on his retirement as patrol officer effective July 8th, 2024, and for dedicated service to the Town of Yarmouth. And be it further known that the Town of Yarmouth extends its sincerest thanks and appreciation for over 38 years of tireless full-time service in the Yarmouth Police Department, as well as for his previous employment as a summer police officer from 1979 to 1984. This citation is duly signed by the Vice Chair of the Yarmouth Select Board on this 10th day of September in the year of our Lord, 2024. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So much.
Sorry, Chris.
Nice to meet you.
And the Town of Yarmouth Select Board has an official citation. Be it known that the Town of Yarmouth hereby recognizes Cheryl A. Jacobson on her retirement as Major Department Finance Administrator effective August 2nd, 2024, and for dedicated service to the Town of Yarmouth. And be it further known that the Town of Yarmouth extends its sincerest thanks and appreciation for 41 years of tireless service, initially in the accounting office and then in the Yarmouth Police Department. This citation is duly signed by the Vice Chair of the Yarmouth Select Board on this 10th day of September in the year of our Lord, 2024. Cheryl, thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Best wishes.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Yes.
And Cheryl, I do believe that our chief said, don't go too far.
I have her on speed dial.
Thank you very much.
A lot of years of service.
It's a tremendous amount. Fantastic. That's what makes our town strong, is service like that. Okay. We have next on our agenda the reorganization of select board positions.
Just procedurally, I'm just, so this is just until the election? I mean, we have to do it again once we have a full board.
It's a good question.
We have a
Well, no, I
quorum.
mean, you don't. You have to decide whether you'd like to do it now, whether you'd like to do it later. I mean, the reorganization is up to the majority of the board at any point.
We do, I mean, it is true that we're missing a member that won't be seated with us until, I would say December, you know, from what we're looking at.
Well, personally, if you're willing to stay as vice chair and she has the authority that we need, I would support waiting until we have a full board, but I'm just one member. I think that if we do it now, we would have to do it again. It's only fair. I mean, they would have assignments, even though it's only for 5 months, so. Again, I'm one board member. I know that there are items on here that we probably need to discuss, but an overall, I would prefer to wait to an overall reorganization.
Lucas, I have a question for the town administrator. There isn't a necessity once we get a fill-in member for the rest of Mike's term for us to reorganize again, right? We could reorganize now, and that would last through May?
That's up to the decision of the board. The board determines that.
Mark, do you have any comments? We're talking about, given that we're going to have an election and a new member that will be seated with us probably in December, should we delay the timing of this until December when we have a full board seated to make the appointments for reorganization?
I'm comfortable with whichever way the board decides. I don't feel any strong desire. You're the vice chair. You're running our meetings. I have every confidence that you do the job well, regardless of whether you're chair or vice chair. I think the thing that I worry about, nervous about, is the licensing stuff and making sure. I think it would be helpful to designate someone as the licensing chair. That's the one thing that I would like to see us talk about and discuss. Again, I'm open to the discussion. I don't come in with any preconceived ideas. My leaning would be, it'd be nice to have someone maybe take that on. And I'd love to see Tracy consider it. She would be my,
Well, why don't we start then with, just, if I could, a motion from the board then for me to maintain the seat of vice chair
Yep.
until such time as we have a full seated
I think it's
board.
fair to whoever campaigns and gets elected that they have a say. That's been the way we've done it in the past. I know this is a unique situation. But I do think that is important for a full board to do a full reorganization if that's what the board wants to do. I do think that we need to address the licensing chair.
yeah. I have no problem having a chair and then reorganizing after the election. That's fine as well. But I'm very comfortable with you continuing on in your capacity as the vice chair, running the meetings and taking the lead.
If everyone is fine with that, then my recommendation would be that we wait until we have the full board to move forward with
Okay.
That's great.
establishing a
So
chair.
essentially, we don't have to do anything then.
Right.
Right, we can live with it, but we should, I think
On
as
the
a board,
licensing,
we
I-
should talk about licensing and any of, I guess the question would be is, on the other responsibilities that Selectman Stone had, is there anything there that we need to address sort of in the interim? And I would be very comfortable if, if something were to come up that would require that liaison to step in. I'm very comfortable with the vice chair addressing those, as in his stead, of course. But I'm very comfortable waiting until and going through the whole thing all over again after the special election.
Okay. In looking through, it seems to me that the vital piece that we have is the licensing chair.
I'd agree.
And do I have a motion?
Well, I'd like to nominate Tracy and Tracy Post to take on the position of licensing chair. Would you be comfortable with being an interim licensing chair or until after the election, Tracy? Would that be more acceptable to you?
Until the election, yeah. I'm not sure. Obviously, it's big shoes to fill. I'm familiar with them, and I will have to more familiarize myself as issues come on, but yes, I will.
Okay.
Would you like to do that as until we fully reorganize after the
Until
election?
December?
I think we have to have somebody, a point person, and I'm willing to do that, but I do think
Yeah.
in December we should.
Well, I understand your hesitation. However, in all of the years that I've served with you on this board, I think you've done a great job in terms of addressing licensing issues. I think you have a firm grasp of the whole process, and I'm sure you'll do a fine job, so
Thank you.
I think you'll do well.
Do I have a second on that?
You do, second.
Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Tracy, thank you very much. You will be in the position of licensing chair to be revisited after we have a fully seated board in December. Thank you very much for stepping
Taking
in.
on the additional portfolio.
And to you
lot
as
of
well,
work.
Dorcas.
Thank you. All righty. Our next item that we have is a public notice.
Would you like me to read it into the record?
Yes, if you could, please, Tracy.
Yarmouth Select Board liquor license hearing. The Select Board, acting as the local licensing authority for the town of Yarmouth, has received an application from Necanth Package Corporation, DBA Paradise Wine and Spirits, Nalish Marfatia, is that correct? Manager, 451 Station Avenue, South Yarmouth, Massachusetts, 02664. The amendment is to change the ownership of stock interests on previously approved liquor license. The hearing will be held Tuesday, August 20th at the Town Hall, 1146 Route 28, South Yarmouth, Mass. 02664. The Select Board hearing begins at 6 p.m. Written comments will be accepted until 4:30 p.m. on Friday, August 16th in the administrator's office at Town Hall, or could be submitted electronically to publiccomment@yarmouth.ma.us, which was published in the Cape Cod Times on August 6th. Since that date, we have made a motion to continue that to today's date, which is September 10th.
And my understanding is that we have received a letter from Mr. Kenny, attorney, acting for the Neelkanth Package Corporation, in which he states, "Please be advised that our client, Neelkanth Package Corporation, doing business as Paradise Wine and Spirits, hereby requests to withdraw its ABCC application for amendment, change of ownership interest submitted on July 17th, 2024, without prejudice."
I make a motion, we do such.
Do I have any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Do I have a motion to close this hearing?
So made.
Second? Okay, all in favor? So this hearing is closed. Then our second hearing?
You need to read the legal notice, right?
Right, right.
have it. It's just after everything else.
Paper one, too.
The Town of Yarmouth Select Board Licensing Hearing, liquor license hearing. The Select Board, acting as the local licensing authority for the Town of Yarmouth, has received an application for a new annual wine and malt beverage package store license from SDR Food Mart, Inc., DBA Yarmouth Mini Mart, 845 Route 28, South Yarmouth, Mass. 02664. Jana R. Patel, manager. The hearing will be held on August 20th, 2024, at the Yarmouth Town Hall, 1146 Route 28, South Yarmouth, Mass. 02664. The Select Board hearing will begin at 7 p.m. Written comments will be accepted until 4:30 p.m. on Friday, August 16th, in the Administrator's Office at Town Hall, and can be submitted electronically to public comment at yarmouth.ma.us. Again, this was published in the Cape Cod Times on August 5th. We had previously opened our meeting and continued it to today's date, which is September 10th. So, everything is in your packet. Can you just state your name?
Sure. My name is Matthew Porter. I'm the attorney for STR Food Mart, Inc.
My name is Ravi Patel. I'm the one of the partner of the store.
So before the board, this is an application for a new wine and malt or beer and wine license for STR Food Mart, Inc., which does business as Yarmouth Mini Mart. Mr. Patel is a 100% shareholder of the corporation, president, treasurer, secretary, director. Also along with us is Jenna Patel. Ms. Patel is the proposed license manager. Suresh Patel is also with us, who is the proposed assistant manager for the license. Both individuals are alcohol tip certified. Ms. Patel has been in the liquor industry for quite some time now, has been operating a store or helping to manage a store for the last 4 years, which has a full all alcohol license. So she certainly understands the rules and responsibilities that come along with that. They've had no violations at her other location. These guys have had the store for nearly 4 years. No tobacco violations, no lottery violations. They certainly understand, what comes along with the sale of controlled substances. So there is no intention to turn this into a full-blown package store. Frankly, it's a fairly small store. They're just going to be using a little bit more of the cooler space for some beer and have a couple wine racks. Everything will be in the sight line of the clerk, so for proper safeguarding. So no major intentions to change the nature of the business. It would just be after work. If someone comes in and wants to grab a bottle of wine or a six-pack after work, it's just going to allow them to better serve their customers. So with that, I can certainly answer any questions that the board may have, and our clients can as well.
Mark?
I don't have any questions.
Tracy?
I prefer to go to the public first before I have any questions or comments, please.
Okay. Joyce?
I've been to this store, Mr. Patel, and it's very clean, looks very well run. My concern is about the location, because it's exactly located between Yarmouth Commons, a low-income housing project, and several little stores down on the strip mall, the Yarmouth Food Pantry. And I hate to see any shelving emptied of food products and filled with malt beverages or wine. I also am a little concerned about our most vulnerable and impoverished residents here. So I'd like to speak up for nutritious foods and all food staying in your lovely, well-run store. And this is not any kind of comment on the personnel, because it seems like you have checked all the dots and you have experienced good people. But I am worried because of the location. I am aware that we only have two what they call WM wine malt beverage licenses left to be given out, and I'm very uneasy about giving one out to this location. But it is the location rather than your business that concerns me.
Do we have anyone from the public that would like to be heard? Tracy?
Well, I guess, unfortunately, my question's a larger question. than this particular application because, as you all know, I sat here for many years and then I left, and there were other convenience stores, so to speak, that got licensed in that meantime. So I was more concerned about setting a precedent and where we're as a town going with this. So maybe somebody can speak to that as far as the policy that the board has. I mean, I read through the regulations, and it's, I mean, it's, we also have a listing here of the stores that are licensed now with the thresholds. Bob, can you just talk a little bit about what you found out? Or maybe Amber, I'm sorry. But I feel like
I can start, and maybe Amber might have some additional information. And we researched policies of the Board of Selectmen and also copied everyone on the licensing rules and regulations, and we were unable to locate any official policies. However, we didn't stop there. We tried to go through some of the older selectmen's minutes, and there's nothing of a discussion within the last 10 years. And prior to that, there was discussion among members of the Board of Selectmen indicating a preference not to have just the mini marts
Excuse me.
at gas stations issued alcohol, but it was just discussion of the board. There was no vote or policy that we did find.
But no licenses had been issued till recently, correct?
Right, and I think that if I recall, some of the discussion surrounding that is that in that intervening, 20-year period, that some of these markets that are being developed that actually have gasoline are larger. It's not like the old-fashioned mini mart that's just a tiny mini mart that, there are some markets that have it. There's Peterson's and smaller markets, but not the tiny ones. And I think what's happened now, there's a whole run on these larger sized markets. So I think ultimately what, we contacted the ABCC to, find out what the status exactly of the licenses were. And that's when we found out that there's only 2 left to be issued. So we thought the idea that, having something like this would make it wide open and all the little tiny markets would come in and looking for alcohol, it doesn't look like that's going to happen because there's only 2 left. But that was what we were able to find. Did I miss anything, Amber?
No, I did not find anything within the current policies that would contradict it. It's just the 2 that are left open right now. That's really what it boils down to. I believe Joyce had mentioned location being, I think things like that are the actual determining factors for the select board.
Can I say something?
Well, Tracy has,
That's
sorry,
okay,
she's still
you can
talking.
go
Sorry.
ahead. I have to,
Oh, of course, she's the chair. Forgive me, Tracy, I forgot your licensing chair.
no, but she had the floor. Okay.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Joyce. Go ahead.
Oh, thank you. I was just going to mention, I was aware that we were getting many more convenience stores, and certainly the planning board has been looking at this, as I guess we all have. And so I did seek to see how many people, how many establishments counted as convenience stores according to our kind of general definition. And apparently we currently have 42. So that's tough. And it's not as if we're in need of more alcohol, because we also, of course, have 9 establishments that have full alcohol licenses for, malt, wine, and spirits. And several of those are on Route 28. So I'm kind of aware this is a service without a need, but I on top of that, have that real concern about public health, community well-being because of the location.
Yeah, my concern has nothing to do with this particular application. With all due respect, I'm sorry that to have this discussion, but mine is more as a community overall. What our plan really is for where we want our licenses to be. I've never been in favor of them being in mini-marts. So, again, I wasn't here. Unfortunately, I think precedent has been set, and I think that would open the town up for some, perhaps I'm wrong with that, but there could be some precedent there, and I don't want to get into it. But I would just like to hear what this board considers appropriate places for liquor or beer and alcohol to be sold, because this is a small, I just don't know what's going to be next in our application. And I just can foresee the future of what is going to come next as far as an application of where it's going to be, and I just don't think that this is what the town wants. But that's I'm one person, and it's no disrespect, anything with your application at all. It's just more of a mini-mart type of thing that I have an issue with. But I wasn't here for when the last one was issued.
And it has been granted in the town, correct?
It has.
So convenience stores have obtained beer and wine licenses with board approval?
Correct.
And my as you said, Bob, we only have 2 more available, and that these designations come from the state, not from the town, correct? It's ABCC that decides.
So no elbow room.
That's correct. And also, I mean, just to clarify too, is that there's very, very few mini-marts. I think the only one I've seen is one.
Right.
Period.
That's my point. That's
So
my
it's
point.
it's not a situation that has been a long-standing precedent in the town that mini-marts carry alcohol.
So if you will allow me to speak. So we've been doing business for the last 4 years and check all the records. We never have even single violation for tobacco or anything else. We're doing what we're supposed to do. And from last, I think, 8 months, that people been issued beer permit in a gas stations and convenience stores. We've been waiting for our chance. Now we're here in front of you guys. So what's the main reason that we cannot get what other people got? And if we go around the town and it's about violations, tobacco violations, selling other stuff they're not supposed to sell, we never had that issue because we do what we're supposed to do from last 4 years. Now, when we are here in front of you guys for a permit and all the other stuff coming out, that, oh, this is the reason, because of this community nearby the store, whatever it is, there is a store in a town, not probably a mile away from our store, that received the permit before 6 months. So I just want to know what is the stuff that holding us by getting the permit.
I can answer if you want. Oh, thank you. It's the location.
I'm not sure
and
that I'm
it's-
following. Maybe I'll let, okay.
Please.
Thank you. There has already in 2020 been a whole episode with your landlord and with the town about cigarettes. It was not your fault. You're selling cigarettes legally, and we understand that. But Yarmouth Commons, the low-income housing development, does not allow smoking. It's a federal law anywhere on the grounds or in the building. So what was happening was people from Yarmouth Commons were purchasing cigarettes, again, legally, at the mini-mart, and then they were clustering under the overhang at the end of the little strip mall to smoke. And then the landlord of the strip mall complained to the town, and a whole notice had to be sent out by Mark Kelly, the then vice president of Yarmouth Commons, warning people that they could not smoke on Yarmouth Commons, but that they also could not be allowed to smoke out at the strip mall across the street, or they would be barred from shopping there. It's the location. It's not you. I've realized, and I know exactly the one you mean, Cape Cod Farms, mobile, all redone with the gas tanks. I know. But they're not in the same little strip mall as the food pantry, and they don't have this area that's like the next address over, which is a huge low-income housing development, which has caused problems that involved the town administration having to deal with the landlord of the strip mall and with the residents of Yarmouth Commons. Again, nothing illegal, but it's a kind of community well-being, almost public health question, because we come up again against the federal regulation.
Okay, so I would just say that whatever happened with the landlord, that we're certainly not the landlord, and the landlord's not before the board. And I guess I'm having a hard time understanding. I think it's unfortunate what happened with the smoking, but I'm having a hard time understanding how that relates to the sale of beer and wine.
It's a issue that came up because of the store's proximity to the public housing.
Right, but what impact how do you believe that this will have a negative impact with the sale of beer and wine? I just don't understand the correlation between the smoking episode and this.
And I see that you don't. I just see it as a more challenging location for these kinds of sales.
Well, I would say everybody is alcohol tip certified. They will have a scanning machine in place. They have a wealth of experience in the liquor industry. They've had no violations of any of their controlled substances. Their license manager who's operated a package store for the last 5 years has no violations whatsoever. So while there may be challenges, these folks are fully equipped to handle that because of their experience, their training. So I can appreciate the concerns, but there's always going to be concerns with the sale of these type of products. And I think these folks here are well equipped to make sure that they're upholding the standards, for themselves and for the town. So I don't see the concern. I just don't see the correlation between these two episodes.
Tracy, did you?
No, I mean, again, my is more of just a policy of the town, and unfortunately, the horse is out of the barn with that, and the board has already issued something. I don't agree with it, and that's all I'm going on record saying. It's nothing to do with this particular.
And my concern is that there is a precedent that's out there, that we did establish that Cape Cod Farms, which is another mini-mart, was given a beer and wine license, Malton wine, or however we say it. And I put some weight in that, the precedent is there.
Unfortunately, you're correct.
Right. But what is encouraging is knowing that there are only 2 such possibilities that are still available in town. It's not as if every mini-mart in town is going to be able to come forward. And hearing from the applicant about and reviewing the paperwork of your previous history and the fact that there have been no violations puts me in a favorable position for this.
Yeah, and the only other thing that I would add is this was noticed in the paper, and there was 60-something abutters that we had to notice, and not a single person is here with any objections or any concerns. So that's the community around the store, right, that all receive these green cards, and nobody's here.
Okay, so I would say at this point,
Does Mark have anything to say, or?
I can understand all of the concerns that have been expressed by the board, but I think if we are going to deny this application, we should have a clear policy already in place as to why he should be, he's following the rules that we've set up. All right? Now, if we wanted to ban this kind of license in a particular neighborhood or in a particular area, and we had a range of other considerations, then we should articulate that either in the form of a bylaw or some other policy that governs our decisions. I'm very nervous about sort of making policy on the fly. He's complying with our guidelines. There's nothing in his proposal that's inconsistent with any of our guidelines. I think I'd be hard-pressed to say no. I believe that we should be supportive of the application, and if we as a board want to, following this, take up the whole issue as a policy for the remaining license, I'm willing to participate in that conversation. But he's doing everything that he's been asked to do, and he's following the laws and the bylaws of the town. Unless there's a compelling reason why we should say no, I don't see why we should deny this applicant. So I understand Tracy's concern, I understand your concern, but I think if we are going to basically deny a license based on concerns that have been expressed, I think those need to be a matter of policy so that he has the opportunity to address them or consider them. So if we have a concern about a location near a particular housing development, then that needs to be expressed some way up front ahead of time so that we can tell the world at large that we're very uncomfortable about putting licenses in particular locations, or we want to segregate certain areas. That should be sort of looked at, analyzed, and dealt with as a matter of policy, with the community being able to weigh in on it. So I'm not a supporter of making policy sort of on the fly, on the moment. I think it would be problematic in terms of denying this. I think at the moment he's made a legitimate request, a legitimate application. He's done the proper notice. The community is relatively comfortable, it would seem. If there were objections, trust me, we've had people come before us with hearings and have not been shy about expressing concerns. With respect to the other licenses that have been issued, I would suspect they're all near residential areas. This is I'd be surprised if they weren't, but I don't know. But again, I think what's been provoked is a more policy discussion separate from you in terms of how we go about dealing with the licenses, and I think that's something that certainly is worth having, but I don't think we should be having it here in this particular case with this particular applicant. I think it's incumbent on us to treat you, fairly, and you've complied with the rules that have been presented. I think we should act accordingly.
I agree with Tracy that we should have a policy.
But it's after the fact, Joyce. I mean, I agree with Mark. I mean, we have established in good faith this company is coming before us. They've done all that we've asked them to do in preparation. There is a precedent of just a mile or a couple of miles down the road. There is another establishment. Certainly, it's a conversation we can have for a later date, since we will have one license that will still be available if we issue this license tonight, and set a policy going forward if the state was determining that we would be getting more licenses. It certainly isn't. I think it is something we should discuss, but I agree, I don't think that here is the place or the time to do it.
I just think with only 2 possible licenses, that location is not a promising one or one good for the community. And if we could go away and make a policy, but I mean, you can fill out all the paper and be well-qualified applicants, but this is a privilege, not a right, because it's going to be extended to very few establishments across the whole community.
Well, at this point, I think we've really had everyone's...
I don't know if you want to take this.
Madam Chair?
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see that. Go ahead, Joe.
Yes, it's still open public hearing, correct?
Yes, it is.
So I had a question that may be pertinent to this. Is there still a church in that strip mall? Because Mass General Laws, Chapter 138, has provision that talks about schools and churches and having a detrimental effect. And I thought that there was a church in that strip mall at one point. And it goes to what Joyce was saying, but my concern was, like Tracy's previous, I don't remember that other mini mart, and it was brought to my attention, and I actually had brought it to Tracy's attention when that other store came online, which was fairly recently, but I don't remember the public hearing approving that one. And so people in the community didn't either, and it was like, where did we do that? And there was a question about the total number. But that goes beyond what you have set for a precedent. If there was a church in there, it is a whole different ballgame. And the only reason I know this is because one in Dennis, the town of Dennis asked the school committee, because there was one last night about close to the Ezra Baker School that was being proposed. And that chapter and bylaw was recognized, and I could read it chapter and verse to you, but it definitely is a law. So I guess the question is, I don't remember if the church is still there or not, but if it is, you could certainly deny it as a detrimental portion of the community.
Do we
There's
know?
there's no church in that plaza. And what I would say is, we're required by law to notice all direct abutters and any churches and schools within 500 feet. So everybody under the statute has been noticed, and we've received no objections from not only direct abutters, but no churches or schools have objected to our application.
Have you
Well,
applied,
that would-
have
that
you
would-
notified any, one sec, Joe. Have you notified any churches or schools? Were there any
Notified
direct-
everybody we're required by law. So if you want me to go through the 65 notices, I mean, I could see whether there's any churches and schools within 500 feet, but there's certainly none within that plaza.
Okay. You could
You
take a
want me to-
minute
Anybody
and
else
look,
remember that there was
just
a church
quickly
in
look
that
through them
Lighthouse
and tell
Plaza?
me if you see a
So
church.
I'd be happy to. There's no restriction on those licenses. It's just that you're required to notice them within, 500 feet. But if you'd like me to look through the notices, I could.
Good. Just quickly go through those for us and see. Kurt, do you have a comment? While we're waiting, Joe, he's going through, let's just hear from Kurt Sears as well.
There is a church in the plaza. It's down next to the food pantry. Number one. Number two, I don't think they would have noticed the church, and they would have noticed the owner of the property. So I'm guessing none of the tenants got noticed in this application.
All of the tenants did. Yeah.
Did they?
Yeah.
So, and there was something I've heard about it in other towns where under separation of church and state, the church couldn't control the license anymore. I think there might have been some court ruling on that, but I'm not guaranteeing that 100%.
Okay,
That the church couldn't hold up a license.
okay.
I mean, we have I don't see any that are readily visible, but we're not aware of any objections, and we certainly would have abided. I mean, we would have pulled the abutters list directly from the town and noticed everybody that we're required to by law, so.
You also contacted the renters, you're saying, as well as the owners
No,
of
I
the
mean, you
property?
can only notice the property owners. I mean, there's no way for us to possibly know everybody that lives in every building, so it's property owners, and that's always been the requirements. That's what's set by the ABCC and by the town, so we've met all of our notice requirements. We've received no objections.
Okay.
Madam Chair, if I could.
Yes, Joe.
So here's Mass General Law, Chapter 138S 16C, indicates that a premise located within 500 feet of a school or a church shall not be licensed to sell alcoholic beverages, unless the LLA, which is you, so it's not the church, it's not the owner of the plaza, it's you, the local licensing authority, determines in writing and after a hearing that the premises are not detrimental to the educational or spiritual activities of the church and the school. That's the Mass General Law, so that's That's what the ABCC has to abide by, and it gives you, the local licensing authority, the decision. So I'm leaving it back up to you. I just wanted to point it out, and thanks for Kurt Sears for backing me up on it. I just didn't remember that was the case, but thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you, Joe. Well, at this point, do I have any members of the board that want to make a motion?
Make a motion, we close the public hearing.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Close the public hearing.
Okay.
Aye. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
I make a motion to deny the permit, perhaps to come back for reconsideration if we get information about the church, but also if we develop an actual policy.
Do I have a second on Joyce's motion? Do I have any other motions?
Madam Chair, I think we have no choice but to approve. All right. And I think the matter of policy should be a second. That should be another agenda item, another discussion. And those who have proposals or suggestions for how we make policy on this, they should be heard, and we should have an open discussion about it. But for the purposes of this matter, I don't think we really have many options here. And the option that I believe before us is that we should approve it. So I'm going to make the motion that we approve the application as presented.
And I'm going to second that motion, because I too agree. I mean, there is a precedent that's been established. We have someone in good faith that's come before us, regardless of where the location is of that establishment, and that any policy would have to be a future consideration, because we don't have anything that has been created as to this date. That's what you've said, Bob and Amber. All we have to go by is the actual licensing of the statutes that we have. So I'm seconding that. So any other discussion?
I have a discussion purposes, just to help the applicant. So if there's a split vote, then would it be beneficial to put this off until we have a full board, or what happens in the split votes? No, that's not a passed motion.
Correct.
So, I don't know what the answer would be at that point in time. I mean, I would be going against my better judgment voting for it. I would as a matter of necessity, but if we could put this off until we had a full board, I think that would probably be more beneficial to the applicant, so. I don't know what you want to do with
And
that.
it's occurring to me suddenly as we're sitting here that, of course, going away and generating a policy on this will only affect the final opening, the one license that's left.
Right.
I mean, that's
Well,
kind of
this-
ironic.
This is
Yeah.
grandfathered, yeah. This is grandfathered.
Well, we have a motion and a
And
second.
we have a second. So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say nay.
Nay.
The motion does not carry. What we can do is consider postponing until, suggesting, I think, that people come back in December when we have a full sitting board. Thereby, you'll have 5 sitting members. There won't be there'll be somebody that will be breaking the tie one way or the other.
That's why I was asking before we took that vote, because we should have, continued it until that time. Now he has to re-advertise it, and I don't know if there's a way we can help him with that.
Yeah, I mean, it's costly, I mean, we had to advertise this.
I
They
understand.
had an attorney drive all the way down here. We asked for a Zoom option. We were not granted that. We were told we needed to be in person. So, I mean, now they're going to require me to come back down here. We have to notice all the abutters again, which is costly. So it's unfortunate.
I think at this point, it is not passing. And that I do recommend at this point for you to reapply. We can postpone it at that point, or suggest that you reapply so that we're coming before us in December when we will have a full board.
I'd just like to add that I do admire Mr. Patel's business.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Can we get your abutter notices,
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what good it does now.
just for the
It's
file?
not going to the state, so.
Okay. There is a church.
Yep. Yeah, 2-2.
Yeah, but there has to be a finding. That's what the law apparently says, so. Plus, we would probably want to do some research on it ourselves and probably, that's great.
Okay, we have a third hearing this afternoon, this evening, a hearing for a Class 1 license for Cape and Islands Golf Carts LLC, 50 Long Pond Drive, South Yarmouth, William J. Crean?
Yes.
Crean, Jr., owner. And I will read that notice. If I can find it. Forgive me a moment here. Public notices originally published at the CapeCodTimes.com on August 29th, 2024. Town of Yarmouth Select Board Class 1 license. The Yarmouth Select Board, acting as the local licensing authority, has received an application from Cape and Islands Golf Carts LLC, William J. Crean, Jr., owner, to sell golf carts, some of which will be low-speed vehicles, at 50 Long Pond Drive, South Yarmouth, Mass. 02664. Hearing will be held on Tuesday, September 10th, 2024, in the hearing room at the Town Hall, 1146 Route 28, South Yarmouth. The Select Board meeting begins at 6 p.m. Written comments will be accepted until 4:30 p.m. Friday, September 6th, 2024, in the Select Board's office at Town Hall, or can be submitted electronically to public comment at yarmouth.ma.us. Verbal comments will be accepted at the hearing, August 29th, 2024. I open this hearing. My understanding is that you have a revised application.
It's at our place.
I didn't get the, you got the new one? I didn't get the new one.
It's at our place.
It's at our place?
It was here.
Oh, here, okay. Okay. Would you like to explain to us about your application, please?
Yes, I got called today by Amber from the licensing board requesting that the application I had been given, the town wanted to edit. And so she basically transferred the information, and I agreed to removing a couple of words from the original application.
Okay. Okay, and do we have any public comments? Joe, is your hand up? Joe Glenn?
Sorry, Madam Chair, it remained previous.
It was for previous. Do we have any other members of the public here to, would you like to explain your application to us, please?
Sure, I had gotten a special permit, and I wasn't aware at that time that because some of the vehicles would be low-speed vehicles, that I would require a Class 1 car license. So I'm required to sell, when selling low-speed vehicles, to have a Class 1 car license because they have a VIN number, and I'll be responsible for, with those being registered. Me being a dealer, they're going to need my identification that I'm selling those vehicles, and they would go to the registry, and they have plates just like an automobile would.
Okay, and we have a finding from the Board of Appeals in which The board agreed to grant a special permit for H4 use with the following conditions. The special permit will not issue until the Zoning Board of Appeals is satisfied with a site plan that shows where trees are or will be planted. For example, 3 trees along Long Pond Drive, 5 trees within the parking lot as originally required, where the petitioner's business is located in the building, the exclusive use area for this business, including the dedicated parking spaces, where the vehicles will be displayed during business hours, and where the vehicles will be stored overnight. Hours of operation from 8 to 9 p.m. During the hours of operation, no more than 6 vehicles will be displayed in front of the petitioner's store, Unit C. All other vehicles parked outside of the building will be parked behind the front corner of the building. Outside the hours of operation, all vehicles parked outside the building will be parked behind the front corner of the building. Are you in agreement with these findings?
Yes. Well, I can't, in terms of the trees, that's outside of my control. That is between the town and the landlord, and my understanding is they're in discussions. Whether that's been completed, I don't know.
The zoning board of appeals is not up for discussion. That's
Yep.
the
Okay.
findings that we don't.
But all of those stand independent from this license. All of those ZBA conditions are requirements by law.
Understood.
Okay. Any comments, Bob?
No additional comments?
Mark?
No, I'm just surprised that this process is the process that you have to follow. You have to go to the registry.
Now I need to wait 4 to 10 weeks. The state police have to come out to the site.
My God.
And, but none of that can happen without
Us acting on it first.
I needed the special permit, the license from the town to run the business, and then the Class 1 license. So I'm not done yet, and I have to satisfy.
My sympathies. You.
Yeah, it's
My
been,
sympathies.
it's been an education.
Yeah, I can imagine you would have
Knocks
preferred.
you right into winter.
Well, it is a.
Floor, please.
Yes.
Point of order. I've got the mic.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. No, I wanted to commend you for starting a business here in Yarmouth, and my sympathies in terms of the rigmarole. What I'm curious about, though, is are there parameters with respect to the criteria upon which we make a decision? What are the factors that we need to consider in granting? I've never been involved in granting a license like this before, and so that's the question that I have before the board, because we generally have criteria on other licensing decisions, but on something like this, on selling golf carts, now that's something that is totally news to me. I don't have any objection to it, by the way, but I am interested, just sort of as a question to our licensing team and staff, are we aware of any particular criteria or standards upon which a select board acts on an application like this? Do we know of any?
The key issues are the zoning. It's required,
Right.
it's allowed under zoning. It has been reviewed by the fire department. It's been reviewed by the building department. All licensing has been.
Right. So when this decision comes before us, there's really no criteria. So if I don't like golf carts, I guess that's adequate enough, right?
I'm not aware of.
No, I don't have any objections to this. I'm totally in support of what you're trying to do. I'm glad that there are people that want to purchase golf carts, and I wish them nothing but the best. And I wish you the best in terms of your particular business. So thank you.
Tracy?
So these are the EV golf carts, right? They're licensed, they have license plates. They're kind of like
Low-speed vehicles.
But they're roadworthy.
Correct. They need to come with their certificate to comply with Massachusetts law, seat belts, wipers.
I've seen some of them around, especially I was in downtown Harwichport this summer. There was a bunch of them around there. I guess my only concern when it comes to this would be health and fire, because reading about the storage, I guess I've seen, and this could be accurate or not, but there have been some news articles about the flammability and the fire that has occurred. I know, I don't know for sure, but it's my understanding that there was a fire in Harwich recently that was from one of these EV carts. So how do you maintain the batteries to make sure?
So they go into a regular plug, and what I was requested, I believe by the fire department or
It
health.
says a flammable cabinet.
Well, I think that was if, there's very little hazardous waste associated, maybe like wheels, but they're lithium, for the most part, what I plan to sell are lithium batteries. You plug it in to a regular wall socket, but they asked and requested, and I'm absolutely fine with it, is that I don't leave them plugged in overnight. So they'll be charging while somebody's there. Anything that's getting charged, it'll be unplugged before you leave the building.
Okay, so you'll have them inside as well as?
Yeah, and I think that's, in that as well, but it'll be a showroom inside. It's 2,000 square feet, and there will be some inside the building.
Okay, so in terms of the fire department's recommendations, how, I guess, we're in early stages of development, I think, with a lot of these things, and it's a learning process. But to what extent are these comments mandatory for the applicant, Bob? So
We should require any license subject to the comments of we have the fire department, the
Okay, and the
building
health.
department, and the board of health.
Okay, I'm comfortable with that. Okay, thank you.
Joyce?
I'd just like to say, and I'm sorry for interrupting my colleague earlier, I thought he had just finished. I'm sorry that this is taking so long. It seems like you've tried very hard. I certainly felt that you were making a good case before the Zoning Board of Appeals, and I would have expected that we would have seen golf carts by now.
Yeah, and I think regardless, I would have had to go through that process before I could do this. So it's not things that from my understanding, and I'm not an expert in this, that you just have to do it. Because even the thing beyond this is another whole, could be up to 10 weeks from now. But that's for low-speed vehicles. If I wasn't selling low-speed vehicles, I wouldn't have been required to get a car license because they're going to be on the road.
So maybe low-speed vehicles to be marketed for Christmas presents?
I hope so.
Okay. Do I have a motion to close the hearing?
So made.
Second.
Second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Do I have a motion on the proposal?
Make a motion, we grant the application with making sure that the comments from the town departments are part of the approval.
And do I have a second on that motion? Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's passed unanimously. Thank you very much. Okay. Next on the agenda, we have a hearing for the annual tax classification. And we do have a legal notice that has been posted. As I understand it, the Town of Yarmouth Annual Tax Classification Hearing under Chapter 40, Section 56, as amended by Chapter 369 of the Acts of 1982 and Chapter 79 of the Acts of 1983, the Town of Yarmouth Select Board will conduct a public hearing on whether the Town of Yarmouth should implement the Classification Act. Said hearing will be conducted on Tuesday, September 10th, 2024, at 6 p.m. at Yarmouth Town Hall Hearing Room, 1146 Route 28, South Yarmouth, Mass. 02664. At the hearing, the Select Board will hear testimony as to what will be the residential factor, which will determine the share of taxes each classification of property will pay, what will be open space factor, and whether to adopt a residential or small commercial exemption. Do we have that this has been posted?
Yes. It was submitted with the packet.
Do we have the actual
August 29, 2024 posted.
posted on August 29th? Okay. Okay.
Good evening. My name is Tara Monroe, Assistant Assessor, and we're here this evening because we're currently in the process of setting the tax rate, which we do annually this time of the year, in order to issue the first half tax bill. After the budgeting process and town meeting take place, the next step in the process is for the assessors to determine, through real estate market activities, what the value of all property in the town of Yarmouth should be. Once the values are computed, they are reviewed by the Department of Revenue for approval and certification. Once our values have been submitted and approval was granted on Tuesday, August 27th. Towns that are certified by the Department of Revenue as assessing at full and fair cash value must decide whether or not to tax all of the classes of property at the same rate, which is commonly referred to as adopting a factor of 1, or to shift the burden among the major property classes. You, as our local officials, have the option of shifting the burden to the commercial, industrial, and personal property class anywhere from 1 to 50%. This would create two different tax rates, one for the residential class of properties and one for the commercial class of properties. You should have also a graphic in your packet that illustrates the shift. And lastly, the Board of Assessors voted to recommend to the Select Board a factor of 1 and to reject the residential and small commercial exemption at their August 1st, 2024 meeting. And in conclusion, I will tell you that to date, the Town of Yarmouth's policy has been to adopt a factor of 1 and and to reject the residential and small commercial exemption. And we are happy to answer any questions you may have.
We don't seem to have anyone from the public.
We did get an email on this. I didn't see it in our packet.
I don't see it
Here
here.
it is, right here.
Got it?
Yeah, Eric Brundage. It was Friday at 12:45.
Could you read it, please?
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's kind of lengthy, but I think it's important because we did get some literature. I don't know if it was provided to, okay, you received it, all right. So I'm writing to express my strong support for the implementation of a residential tax exemption in Yarmouth. I believe that such a policy could bring significant benefits to our community, and I would like to outline the reasons for my request. Number 1, property tax relief for residents. A residential tax exemption would provide a much-needed property tax relief to homeowners who live in the properties as their primary residence. In today's economic climate, where many families are grappling with rising living costs, property taxes can be a significant burden. By implementing a residential tax exemption, Yarmouth can help alleviate this financial strain for its residents, particularly those on fixed income, seniors, and working families. 2, encouragement of home ownership. The prospect of residential tax exemption could serve as a powerful incentive for individuals and families to invest in home ownership within our community. As we are well aware, workforce housing remains a constant issue because folks can't afford to live in the community in which they work. By making it more financially feasible for residents to own their homes, they can bolster Yarmouth's sense of stability and strengthen the bonds that tie us in this beautiful town. 3, preservation of community. A residential tax exemption aligns with Yarmouth's values of preserving our community. It encourages long-term residency and discourages property speculation, which can lead to erosion of our unique character. By promoting owner occupancy, we can ensure that the town remains a place where people put down roots and actively engage in local affairs. Number 4, increased economic activity. The additional disposable income that residents have due to the reduced property taxes can have a positive impact on our local economy. It could lead to increased spending at local businesses and stimulate economic activity within Yarmouth, contributing to the prosperity of the community. Number 5, social equity and affordability. A residential tax exemption can play a vital role in promoting social equity by offering targeted tax relief to those who need it most. This policy can help lower income and elderly residents remain in their homes and avoid displacement due to rising property taxes, and ensuring that Yarmouth remains accessible to all people with diverse backgrounds. I understand that implementing a residential tax exemption requires careful consideration of its financial fiscal impacts on the town. However, I believe the potential benefits, both immediate and long-term, justify this investment in our community's future. I can't help but notice that Barnstable has had a residential exemption in place for more than 10 years. Mashpee approved it in 2022. Provincetown recently increased their exemption to 35%. These towns have recognized the challenges faced by year-round residents as the Cape increasingly faces the prospect of Nantucketization, where there are fewer and fewer options for affordable year-round home ownership, and the increasing need to import an insufficient, often temporary workforce to provide essential services, from our first responders to our schools to our supermarkets. The lack of sufficient workforce is acute. This problem is not going to get better. The time for Yarmouth to adopt this policy and support its year-round residents is now. While a panacea solution to this problem, a residential exemption, while not a panacea solution to the problem of resident exemption, is one meaningful way for the town of Yarmouth to acknowledge this need and support its residents. Waltham, Tisbury, I believe that such a policy would not only benefit the residents but strengthen our community as a whole. And it has a link to Barnstable. Sincerely, Eric Brundage. And I think that that's important to read because I think it was very thoughtful and well written. So, and I appreciate the.
Madam Vice Chair, are there any other public comments or any other emails that we have received?
No other emails.
That was it? Then I would like to move that we close the public hearing.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, hearing has been closed.
In terms of deliberations, I'm happy to start if that's in order. I think this is a fairly routine matter that we've handled pretty much every year. And our finance directors have always been insistent that we be among the first to get our tax rate. No? Certified? You're shaking your head no. Yeah, no, as I recall, this is all part of the process of getting your tax rate set. So I'm very much in supportive of the recommendations of the assessors and the classification. Do you have a prepared motion for us? Is in the packet? You've got it, Tracy?
Yep.
Okay, then I think that would be in order. Thank you. So then what I would like to do, if it's okay, Madam Vice Chair, is to read the motion. That is that the town of Yarmouth I move that the town of Yarmouth continues to tax all classes at the same rate by adopting a factor of 1 and to reject the residential exemption and small commercial exemption. And I further move to authorize the use of a signature stamp for tax rate forms and authorize the Director of Finance to sign for the Select Board electronically. Is that okay?
That about sums it up, yes.
Now,
Thank you.
having made that motion, if I get a second, I'd like to just speak to it really briefly. I too want to comment on the email that we received. I thought it was a very thoughtful email. It was a very responsible set of concerns and objections. And I do think it's a subject that we should bring up and discuss at a separate time. But however, for tonight, for the purposes of what we have to do this evening, I think it's important that we move with all due speed and act on this particular request that's before us. So thank you.
Tracy?
No, I agree. I think there were a lot of points in there that were valid. And the problem that we have is, and this could change in the future, I think to have a split tax rate, you need a healthier commercial base. That's something that we've been lacking and declining in for many years, unfortunately, perhaps after the sewers go in and our vision maybe comes to light. But, we have a 4.73% commercial tax rate. That is not enough to split it at this point in time, and it's declined over many years. I mean, I think most towns that do it have a much higher percentage, so that's concerning to me. If we were to look at, I don't think the Airbnb and the housing issue was going on many years ago where we would consider it like we would consider it now, but I think it would be in tandem with another plan. I have a harder time mentally myself taxing second homeowners that don't use our services here, our schools and alike, at a higher rate than those that are here. So, but it's worthy of a discussion in the future. I just don't think we're there quite yet.
Joyce?
I'm thinking of what Tracy just said. It's interesting because, of course, sometimes empty homes can cause more business for the fire department. But I absolutely agree that for this year we proceed and maybe expand the commercial base, which we've all been saying for decades, but also maybe kind of have a question mark about the full-time versus part-time ownership and the tax. Thank you.
I too agree with the comments that have been made. It was a very thought-out request that was put in by our tax owner in town, but I don't feel that this is the time to do that. So that we do have a motion on the floor with a second, and so I would ask at this time for a vote. All those in favor, say aye.
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 And opposed? Very good. The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, do you have something for us to sign, Tara?
No, you don't have to sign anymore.
That's right.
We
So
don't
you
need a
don't need
wet
a stamp. Okay,
signature.
very good.
Yes,
Thank you.
but thank you for thinking of that.
Next on the agenda, we have a discussion for the ME Small School and Matakees Middle School properties with the Dennis Yarmouth Regional School District.
Good evening, everybody. All right, perfect, thanks. Good evening. Mark Smith, Superintendent, Dennis Yarmouth, and online is Joe Glynn, school committee member, liaison to the Yarmouth Board of Selectmen as well. And here to I have a short presentation just based upon watched a little bit of the discussion around the ME Small property. So I just wanted to provide a little bit of some, I don't know, forward information, or just try to get a little bit of information like on the table, and then open the floor to questions and try to answer whatever and provide and fill in any gaps that I can. But I do have a little bit of sort of upfront information to provide to try to fill in some gaps based upon some questions that I heard in the last, at least one of the meetings where I heard some conversation around this, just to try to provide a little bit of context for a potential for our conversation. So I want to start with just some basic district-wide information, because while there is obviously a conversation relative just to the ME Small property, I think having the broader district context is necessary, because I know there was some conversation that sort of moved around, well, where might we be able to put students across the district? So just to give you a sense of what district enrollment looks like currently in the district. So as of I checked on Friday, so the enrollment in the district as of Friday, students walking in the door is 3,186 students. That is plus 100 students than we had in the district last year. And last year, that was the highest enrollment than we had had in a decade. So the last 2 years, we have more students in the district than we've had in the last 10. You can see by looking at that graph there shows the last 10 years of student enrollment data in the district. So this idea of declining enrollment was definitely something that was happening in DY, but the last 4 years, the trend is definitely heading in the other direction, and steeply heading in the other direction. Will this trend continue? I don't have a crystal ball, but what I can tell you is that we have consistency across the district. The pre-K is the biggest it's ever been. It's full. And I have 250 kids in the 8th grade, which is 50 bigger than any other class in the high school. So it's across the district, throughout the district. And for a little breakdown on how it plays out across the district, Again, this is not foundation enrollment. This is the kids who are actually walking in the door, right? So 68% of the kids walking in the door live in Yarmouth, 27% of them live in Dennis, and 4% of them come from other towns. So then when we're talking about the Yarmouth elementary schools, so the students who go to Station Avenue and the students who go to Margaret E. Small, that's 728 kids just between those two schools right there. Again, just sort of talking about size and where we are, just give you a sense of the spread. Both the intermediate middle school, so the brand new beautiful school that we're very thankful for, houses over 1,000 students, as does the high school. The high school hasn't had over 1,000 students in quite some time, but with that big class of 8th graders, the high school is now over 1,000 students again. And then since this conversation, I know, sort of has ME Small as one sort of side of the coin, but the other side of the coin is sort of looking at the Station Avenue campus as a whole, right? And potentially an expansion. I know that was sort of some of the previous conversation was expanding on Station Ave Elementary. I wanted to sort of look at that context. So on that campus, we have the Station Avenue Elementary School. We have our new DY Intermediate Middle School. We have the high school, and then we have the small central office building. So when you look at those properties along the Station Avenue corridor, you have currently 2,429 students, approximately 420 staff, and we run 6 bus runs through that property a day, which is 12 buses to Station Avenue twice a day, 29 buses to DYIM twice a day, and 22 buses to the high school twice a day. So just giving, again, some context for the conversation. And then what does that look like? So for the intermediate school, the intermediate middle school, again, those students all come and go at the same time. So those 1,000 kids coming and going at the same time. The red line represents the pathway that parents take for pickup and drop off. So they come in that exit closest to the solar field. This is the parents. They drive all the way around the back, stop, and either drop off in the morning or that's where they pick up in the afternoon, and then exit out, where the buses come in at the light on Station Ave, come in and then line up and drop off and then circle around the lot and come back out, and all traffic is exiting out the light, the area with the light. But again, you can imagine there's a lot going on there when you've got 1,000 little humans coming and going. And then Station Avenue, about 45 minutes later, the Station Avenue Elementary School, we have the buses come in on the left and come into the loop that's in the front of the building. And it's kind of staggered a little bit because not all the buses actually fit inside that loop. So they have to, some of them have to sort of stage along the road at both dismissal and depending upon the timing at arrival. And then for the parent drop-off, they actually have to go all the way down the road, loop into that lot in the back. So I'm sorry, my drawing isn't great. My mouse hand is not as steady as I'd like it to be. But so go all the way down, loop down through that lot, then come all the way back up the road, then loop back into the parking lot on the side, and then they start, and that's where they actually do the pickup is in the loop there, and then they exit back out that same road that they came in. So again, to give you a little sense. So I think this is sort of a little bit around the conversation around the idea of adding another 350 kids plus roughly 80 to 100 staff into this mix and all the parent traffic that goes with it. When I started to think about that, that's where I didn't think this was a very particularly good idea. And I don't know where the property space would go. There's not a lot of room from the back of the building to that back road. There's a playground on the, I wish I had put directionals on here somewhere, but between the building and the solar field is where the play space is. And then to come out to the front, this is a field which is used both as the gym, the phys ed classes for Station Avenue use that field in the front. Plus, we also use it for the middle school athletics in the spring and the fall. And I don't think any of the high school athletics use it currently. And plus, there's a roadway in between there, which we can obviously see for a lot of traffic. So the idea of if we were to add a building or add on to this building, I'm not sure we would lose. I don't know where the parking would go. I don't know where the traffic would go. And then there were sort of some other considerations, which if we were to do an addition onto this building, when we started sort of thinking about this, just doing an addition is completely disruptive to, like, where do I put the kids at Station Avenue Elementary School while we're trying to do an addition? If we were to try to put...
Madam Vice Chair, can we just stay on this point for a second?
Yeah.
The reason why I'm glad you're addressing this, and I'm glad you're here. But I just want to stay on this point because the prior superintendent, and someone can correct me if I'm wrong, was sort of telling this board that, and maybe I misheard it, or maybe maybe I'm confused, but it seemed to be pretty clear to me that she wanted to make sure that this campus was set up so that when Marguerite Small was phased out, that there would be a place to go. And we were kind of reassured that there'd be space there. Now, we never went into the details, and we never asked for due diligence, but we got some pretty strong assurances that there would be space there. Now, am I?
No, you're correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you should just be understanding that.
Which is, sorry, yeah.
We're coming at this, with a sort of assurances and understandings that were very, very clear from the people that sort of promoted the project. And I have to say that as a select board member, I hate it when we are, getting information from the schools that we end up finding out may be incorrect. My hope is that the relationship can continue to improve. So I appreciate what you're saying, but I'm very upset and concerned that the information that we're getting is completely different from what we were assured by the prior superintendent. So I just want to get on record with that with you, just to make sure, because then what it does is it raises questions about trust, confidence, and doing due diligence on our part for any of the assurances that we get from the schools. So I just want to get that point out there. Like I said, I'm upset to hear that whatever we were told, apparently we can just basically disregard it.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't obviously here for those conversations. And I can imagine when this was all trees, it probably looked like it was all going to fit. And now when you run 1,000 kids through that space, and again, when you look at that trend line, so I don't know when those conversations were. So if those conversations were, somewhere in the 2016, 17, 18, 19 space, that trend line was heading in a different direction. The reality on the ground has also changed. That the building, the DY Intermediate School, is supposed to house upwards of 950 to, I think it's 980 kids. We're already over 1,000. So we're heading the trend line for everybody, and I grew up in the Cape. I would have told you, I would have bet anything we were losing kids.
We've closed 2 schools. I mean, we have been.
Yeah, if I can just complete the exchange here, we were told there was it wasn't so much the numbers, although that trend was a factor, there's no question about it, but we were told that there was literally physical space. There was real estate there where you could put a building and add the number of students that were anticipated at the time to be put in it. Now to hear that, well, there is no footprint, there is no space, is a little bit of a, not a small revelation. We as a board, we're wrestling with debt service that continues to go up, with the schools that we're already dealing with. Then we also have huge wastewater debt that we're wrestling with. It was my hope that we would be in a position where the costs for dealing with this would be far more manageable. Now, I know you're going to go, we hope to go through soon a study, and hopefully there'll be some news on that soon. But
Yeah, I got another slide on that.
okay, well, that's good, because I think obviously all of these options need to be looked at carefully. But you should be aware that it's just not me. If this is the information that was presented to me, this was presented to a lot of people within the community as well. So it's going to be a very interesting conversation when we lay out the options to the public here in the town of Yarmouth in terms of where we can go and what we can do. So just lay that out there for you.
Yeah, and I mean, again, I can't speak to what happened in the past. All I can say is I appreciate what you're saying, and I understand what you're saying, and some of the realities in even just Station Avenue Elementary School, right?
We don't need to argue this point
No.
here, and
Yeah.
I didn't bring it up to it. I just wanted you to understand that sometimes when people come to an issue or a problem, we have different sets of assumptions and expectations.
Right.
And there's information that we've been presented, because as you know, the whole discussion of this complex in a school was a fairly spirited conversation, let's say, and discussion here in the town of Yarmouth. And, you know, I hate going back over who said what when, but that was an important factor in the discussions that we had here, so.
Tracy?
Well, just to compound that, and again, Dr. Smith, it's not your issue, but the taxpayers, you know, we entered into a feasibility study. At no point in time, if we believed, we spent over $100 million to build the school. If we knew we were going to have to build 2 schools, right? We would have built 1 school for Yarmouth alone and paid 100% of it instead of paying 70% and now having to pay a whole 100% of another school. So that was, if we knew we were going to have to build a school for Emmy Small, we would have built 1 school for Yarmouth. That would have been what we would have sold to the taxpayers, because.
Because I don't have the historical context.
Yeah.
Help me understand.
So
Yeah.
it was our feasibility study when and I don't want to rehash the whole situation again. I'm like Mark, I'm trying to move forward in a positive manner with our district, but I feel bad right now for our taxpayers because, well, they didn't support the school in the first place, but that was another issue. But I believe that if it had been a Yarmouth school and not a district school when we built it, because it was our feasibility study to replace Matakese. If we had known at that time that we were going to have to build 2 schools, we would have built 1 school for Yarmouth, right? We wouldn't have built a school for Yarmouth and Dennis and then gone back, now we're going to have to build another school. That's basically what at the end of the day, from what I've read in your package has suggested that we need to build a new school,
So
right?
K-7 school is what you're saying you would have built?
I mean, we paid 70% of a building, right? Now we're gonna have to pay 100% of another building. So, to me, the taxpayers at that time were under the impression that Station Ave was built so that we could put a wing on it. And that was the district, and I know you weren't there, but unfortunately you represent the district.
Yeah.
The district at that time wanted a campus feel. Everything was planned to go on that campus, and the cheapest proposal was to do the intermediate school and then put a wing, which, from my understanding, many, many years ago, Station Ave was built to be able to put that wing on. And that was going to be the most cost-effective way for the taxpayers of Yarmouth. So now what we're hearing is the taxpayers of Yarmouth just spent, what was our portion of the 100 and something million? 80, almost $90 million?
Well, minus the state reimbursement. Yeah, so it's, the state's paying 50 or whatever percentage of the state's covering, but yeah, because you got the MSBA reimbursement in there. So I don't have those numbers off the top of my head, so I don't want to say something.
Million then.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember what was passed, but
Roughly 45 million, let's just say.
but
Yeah, the whole
Lot of
cost
money.
of the project was, yeah, but I don't want, we're still talking about large sums of money
It's
regardless.
semantics.
Yeah, yeah.
But the bottom line is, now somebody's gonna have to go back to the taxpayers and tell them that we need another school. And that is just going to be a very difficult pill for them to swallow. So my hopes with our meeting is that, and I understand, again, you weren't here, and we have increasing enrollment, which is a wonderful thing, that we would be able to look at what space we have. And if I'm understanding your literature correctly, again, you're saying that we don't we no longer have space in these buildings to be able to reconfigure. And our only option would be to build another school.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, you had a failing school, which was the Mattakese School. And-
Emmy Small was failing actually before.
And you
that.
have
Yeah.
another failing school, which is, you had two failing schools. Again, why one got put ahead of the other, I wasn't here for those conversations, but you had two failing schools. Dennis had a failing school, and my understanding is that's why you have a intermediate middle school, is because both towns had a need, and that's what led to the need for a regional school. And Yarmouth still has another failing school, which is the ME Small School. And your need hasn't gone away as far as student enrollment. You still have 700 and whatever that number was, almost 730 kids at the elementary level, pre-K to 3.
You're absolutely correct in all of that, except the steering of the joint school from a perspective of both towns was from the district and not from this board or this town, is what I'm telling you. So we entered into it to look at replacing Mattakese. At that time, I believe if we knew that we weren't able to put a wing on and we were gonna have to build a new school, this board and our taxpayers would have fully supported one school. The district asked Dennis to participate, am I wrong?
No, you're,
And that's how we got what we got.
Yeah,
Because,
sorry.
no, I'm going back in time. I don't think we're gonna,
I guess unless I'm missing something, you'd still have ME Small, and you'd still have this problem.
I believe that if we were told at that time that we were gonna have to build 2 schools, is what I'm telling you, that this board never would have went and asked the district to go in a different direction. We would have built 1 school from Emmy Small and Mattakese. That's what I believe, if we had the information that you're giving us here today at that point in time, which we didn't. At that point in time, we believed we could put a wing on Station Ave and solve our issue.
Oh, okay, I understand. So when you talk about needing to build a school, you're not talking, so, all right, now I think I understand.
We had 2
Now I
failing
think I understand.
schools.
Yeah.
Carol had
Right.
admitted at one point in time that she made the mistake of putting Mattakese first. Now, we know with the MSBA, you can only have 1 letter of interest at a time.
Yeah.
So we took it in stages. But the district took the lead from Yarmouth over what happened and partnered with Dennis to fix their problem.
Okay, so now I think I better understand. So when you're talking about addressing ME Small as a new school, separate from the concept of taking ME Small and essentially taking that building and making it an addition to Station Avenue.
That's what we were led to believe.
That's what we were led to
Right.
believe at that time, that
Okay.
that was gonna solve our
Right.
issue.
So I guess what I would just caution the board and the public is I don't want to call it a fairy tale because sometimes it happens, but oftentimes we can believe that an addition project is a much cheaper way to go. I'm a resident and taxpayer in the Nauset Regional School District. That is an addition renovation project. That has not come in under budget. They've come back to us on more than one occasion for that project and charged us more money. So, and that project, as I watch one daughter graduate from that high school, and I've got 1 kid in it, it's not a smoothly run addition and renovation project. I mean, I shouldn't say it's not smoothly run. I'm just saying it's not been cost efficient way to do a project.
And again,
I don't know, maybe they would have been better off if they just built a brand-new school in front of the complex and tore the old one down. And I'm a graduate from that school. I like the open campus feel, but from a cost-saving benefit, it's not always necessarily the most cost-beneficial way to go, because when you're renovating, you have to deal with the kids who are in the building.
we did that at DY. We did that at the high school. We did a renovation there, and they had, pods set up everywhere. Again, the horse is out of the barn. I'm just expressing you know, a little bit of history so that way you understand where we're coming
Yeah.
from. Because unfortunately, you know, the message to the taxpayers was a different message back then than what we're gonna have to say now. And to Mark's point about our debt service, you know, we've entered into other items since then, a new DPW building and other things when a new school, a complete new school was not on the radar. That's, I'm not trying to be negative. I'm not trying to go backwards in time. I'm just trying to help you understand where we're coming from with, our disappointment. But we could only act on the information we had at that time.
So I guess maybe then it makes sense for me to jump to the last side.
Sorry.
No, it's fine, which is to let you know where we stand, which is, so we have been for multiple, since, you know, again, predating my arrival as superintendent, but the district, once the new building was in the MSBA pipeline, started reapplying for ME Small. And that.
And I might add, with strong encouragement
Yes.
from us.
Right, no,
And
yeah.
strong support.
Yep.
We
Yeah, well,
weighed in with our legislators and.
Yeah, and I was here last year, and we had that conversation. So this year, we made, actually with the, as you mentioned, the legislators were very helpful in getting us a meeting with MSBA. I wanted to sort of get some feedback from MSBA on our application, and so they gave us a little bit. So we revised our application from last year to this year. And we've been invited into what they call senior study, which is, for anybody who isn't aware, it's not, we're not in, but they take we're essentially like in a finalists round, right? They take a closer look at our application. So we actually have that meeting tomorrow morning. So a bunch of school staff, Mr. Rittenauer will be joining us to meet with MSBA. They'll be coming, we have about a 2-hour-long meeting where they'll be taking a closer look at our application, asking us from some follow-ups. We'll be touring the building. So we're hopeful that this will mean we're moving forward with the state. Now, that'll mean then if we, in the next phase will be, I think what somebody's already referenced, the idea of a feasibility study. So then from there, we'll have to then explore all sorts of options, just like we did last time. And so that would include, is because the state is big, I should say, the state's not a big fan on small elementary schools, so one of the things they're going to push us on is to look and see, is there a way for us to consolidate? Which is why, I wasn't here, but if I was to suppose, or if I was to assume, I'm looking for a word that's escaping me, but I wouldn't be surprised if the state also encouraged. That's sort of why we have the current building, because the state is more interested in funding larger school projects than they are smaller school projects. So even if, and so again, if we're looking for the state to be a partner in this, they're going to want us to look at all sorts of different type of avenues. So anyways, we have that meeting tomorrow, and then sort of as a parallel piece, you know, we believe, or I believe, and we just rolled out a new, we're polishing it. We worked this summer to develop a new strategic plan as a district, and as an arm of that strategic plan is, I really feel the district needs a long-term capital plan for the district, 5 to 10 year capital plan that we're constantly adding in that new 10th year. And so wherever, whether it's ME Small or the rest of our buildings, we need to make sure that those buildings are safe and secure for all the students and staff who walk in them every day, right? So I mentioned I met with a local community group the other day, and we, as the district, I know sort of governance-wise, we operate sort of a little bit differently because of the way the regional agreement's set up, but we are the municipalities, right? We are the largest service of both the towns. We are the towns, just because the towns decided a long time ago as a cost-saving measure to regionalize their schools. We are still part of the municipality. We manage 600,000 square feet of municipal buildings and 152 acres of municipal property. And we need to we have a responsibility to have a long-term plan for that, and working with both communities on how to maintain that significant taxpayer investment. So we'll be working on this year on developing that plan, and then working with both communities on, how are we planning for those things, those investments, and making sure we're caring for those investments for the next 10 years, and then we'll keep working on, building that plan out as, each year passes.
When you talk about the square footage, the size of the buildings that you have, it brings up for me pie charts that you show for your, for the appropriations. And one of the ones that kind of jumps out for me, correct me if I'm wrong, is that 2% of the budget goes to maintenance and repair of the buildings. Total.
Yep.
So, for me, that is looking at the fact that you're probably relying more on capital expenditures for the maintenance of the building than actual maintenance and repair, preventative maintenance and repair within the building. 2%, you just said how big your properties are.
Yeah.
And it's only 2% out of that total budget.
Yeah, so that's for doesn't count the salaries. So that's outside of the salaries of the people who do the work for us, right? So if you put the salaries in, then it's a little bit, a slightly larger piece of that pie. So like when David has that pie that he shows every year, we put the human capital in one bucket, and then those are the costs of like the supply pieces or the contracted vendors, like the people who come in and work on the HVAC or those types of things that aren't our employees. So yes, but yeah, it's every year it's a difficult conversation around where are we going to invest funds, and I would argue that's why we need a long-term capital plan, is because we both internally need to be looking at the things that we need to be investing in over a long-term plan. And then we also need to be, there are some projects that are, if we're going to have to, some things that I've become aware of over my first year, which are like the age of some of the boilers in some of the buildings, roof projects, the envelope at the high school, the track at the high school. Trying to think of some other ones off the top of my head. We're currently working on some of the repair work on the envelope at the high school. Windows, things, safety upgrades, camera upgrades. Like some of our schools don't have a single camera in them. Like from a safety and security standpoint, do we want to have schools without a single camera in them? As a new superintendent coming in, that doesn't make me feel particularly comfortable. So like we need to determine what all those needs are. We already have a pretty good sort of loose list, but as a superintendent, I want a comprehensive list, and then I need to prioritize them, because we're not gonna be able to do everything in the first year. Anybody who's run any type of large organizations anybody who's run a household budget knows you can't do everything you wanna do up front, right? So then we need to come up with a prioritized system. I know I've sat in the capital planning meetings here. I know they use a prioritization system. So come up with a prioritization system and then apply the prioritization system to your needs and then lay that out. And then we have to look at our available funding sources. We have some available funding sources, and then we're going to have to work with our partners on, ultimately we'll have to work with you all, both here and with our partners across the Bass River, on how do we look to fund projects over multiple years.
Mm-hmm. Because at the end of the day, the taxpayers that we represent here only have one wallet. And the amount that they're being asked to take out of that wallet is reaching the point where, for many of these people, it's becoming a financial burden to be able to sustain it.
Right, which is why you need a plan, right? So I can't just show up and be like, hey, this thing broke, and all of a sudden we have this emergency. I think if we can have this long-term plan, and we can then all work because I'm sure the police department has needs, and the fire department has needs, and the DPW has needs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we all need to be able to work together to lay those things out, and then ultimately the taxpayers are going to make the decision about what they ultimately can and can't fund over a period of time. But if we don't even have a list of needs prioritized and organized, then how can we be a part of the conversation?
Mm-hmm. I think it's important to keep in mind what has been said about what has been presented to the board previously and how the taxpayers in town voted, perceiving that things were going to be going in a certain direction that now seems to be going in a very different one. So I think we're going to have a very tough uphill climb for what's coming.
Yeah, I mean, I guess maybe it's just my naivete, but I guess I see that the problem at ME Small is not a new problem. And we need to do something at ME Small. And that's all we're moving forward here, is that school needs to be addressed. And there are a lot of new, we have more and more kids coming to the DY school district. I don't see that changing. There was a conversation here earlier tonight around the conversation around the tax rate, and there is again, somebody who grew up here on the Cape. I think the letter referenced sort of the Nantucketization, I think was the phrase that was used, of the Cape. So this is not necessarily superintendent, maybe a little bit more of a personal editorialization, but Nantucket's a little bit of the canary on the coal mine. I've always looked at Nantucket as the canary in the coal mine for the Cape. I've looked at it as hiring practices for school districts. I look at it for enrollment trends and a couple of other areas. But if I look at what happened in the Nantucket School District, they saw a spike in enrollment and saw enrollment trends that we are seeing here about 10 years ago. And it was largely driven by what happened in their housing market. And we had a big change in our housing market during COVID. And now we're seeing a similar spike and change in our enrollment trends inside of our school district. And when I talked to the superintendent over there, the patterns that they're seeing in enrollment are that they saw enrollment when they had their big housing boom and housing spike mirror what we're seeing. And they haven't leveled, I mean, they've leveled off, but it's not like they then saw a rapid decline, right?
It stayed up.
It stayed up because we have a need. We have a service need, right? We are a resort economy, largely. Unless you work in the public sector or you work in healthcare, largely, then we're a resort economy. That resort economy needs some workforce, and that workforce will come from somewhere. And it is filling, that void is being filled, and those kids are coming to my school district.
Joyce?
I'd like to echo what my colleague said, that there was this delusion about the expandability of Station Avenue. But it wasn't one person. I wasn't on the board then, didn't hear it from the superintendent. I was told by two different school committee members of 10 years ago in Station Ave cafetorium that, yes, there was a way to build this school out. And I just wondered, did you ever see, I mean, I guess forensic architecture, any indication that that was the case in the building?
And I can go back and look, and maybe there's a way to go up, or I just, from a security standpoint, it's more, actually, I wouldn't even say from a security standpoint, I would wonder about two things. And again, we'll study it because it'll be part of the study process. I wonder if it'll be cost efficient. Like let's say it's to go up. Mm-hmm. Well, then what do I do with all the 405 kids that are currently registered at Station Avenue while we try to go up? And so if it is up, and then where do the roughly 85 new staff members park so that I don't lose the play space?
Was alarming.
Yeah, it's awful crowded over there now when everybody's present. I don't know. Maybe it'll work. And again, I'm not a landscape engineer, so like, it'll be part of this feasibility study. I'm not saying, ultimately it's not my decision. I'm just saying, as a new superintendent coming in and studying this and seeing the traffic flow over there now, the idea of adding roughly 350 more kids and the staff and the parent traffic that comes with it, it's a little hard to imagine.
Madam Vice Chair?
Yep.
Yeah, I appreciate your recognition of the traffic problem. My hope is that more people will feel comfortable letting their kids use the bus as opposed to driving. You know, there's so many cars stacked up on Station Ave where there's a parent and a kid, and they're just all queued up, clogging up the road. Hopefully, at some point, people will feel more comfortable putting their kids on a bus. I don't know if that's something that you can help address, but it would be appreciated if we could cut down on that volume. The other point that I really want to emphasize is that when you do your study, you really have to look at the on-site option, recognize the traffic and those other factors, but that should be looked at as well. But clearly, in this town, there's an expectation that that's an option, and there's some viability to it. And I would recommend maybe consulting with the folks that were pitching that to us and selling us on that, because that's kind of where a lot of folks in Yarmouth are at and where we're going to be looking for some answers. I do think it's important to look at all the options, and I'm glad that we seem to be making some progress on this feasibility study. I think that's terrific, and I commend you and your folks for pushing this. I would recommend that in looking at all of your capital needs, we do have the MacArthur School. The lease, we have tenants there now. They're doing a wonderful job, and we like having them there, but to some degree, that may have to be looked at as an option as well, because the lease, I believe the lease for Bridgewater ends in a few years, and we may have to take a look at reallocating space. Maybe there's a way Bridgewater could go to another place or another satellite location, or maybe the Cape Cod Collaborative could. But that school facility, that building served the town well, for many, many years, and I would argue that should be in the mix of looking at all your options as well. It's just that what you're hearing from us is a real concern that with debt service, we have so much pressure on the wastewater issue, and the state's not delivering, and the feds are not delivering all the federal and state largesse that we were promised. Those promises have basically been empty, and so in many cases, those investments are going to be really on the hooks of the taxpayers. At the moment, we've got a revenue stream that protects the taxpayers, but there's some real questions here in Yarmouth as to how far we can go with our wastewater without going to the taxpayers. And so that's kind of an ominous cloud hanging over us right now. So the more that you look at your options, finding all the feasible options, particularly those that can help us on the taxpayer side, that kind of exercise will be incredibly helpful, going forward. So I wish you luck in getting this project funded, this feasibility study funded, and my hope is that there'll be some consultation with us in terms of what the options are that you'll be looking at and considering.
They'll have to be. It's going to be it's a Yarmouth school, and we won't move forward without the town.
Thank you.
Joyce?
Oh, I had just one more point. Back to building design and thinking of it financially. I think because you were previously at Nauset, you know about the Cape Light Compact, but they have extraordinary programs for not only new buildings, like get them in the early design stage for funding about maximum energy efficiency, but also for large renovations. And I mention this because Maggie Downey, the administrator of the compact, is going to be here next week talking about their new 3-year plan and the kind of things that offers. So if you were able to tune in on that, you might see some possibilities for the district.
Perfect, thanks.
Thanks. All done.
And
I don't know. I just have a few more. I was stuck in the past, but I'm kind of trying to look at the future now. Can you tell me that solar field that's there, what the life expectancy remaining on that solar field is?
I don't know, but I can get you that information. Yeah, I don't off the top of my head, no.
I mean, it takes up a lot of space.
should be 20 years.
Yeah, I know, and I'm thinking 20 years, but
been there a
it's,
while.
it's been there for some time, so perhaps that's a thing. The other reason that we had you in here is because, as was stated earlier, in our meeting, there were people who want to move forward with the Mattakees reuse building, and when we talk about, potential options, to me, that could be a temporary place potentially for the students while we redesign, so, as well as what Mark has talked about. Have you looked at the census at all and made a projection?
The town birth census?
Or
No.
DESE does that, correct?
No, you usually have to pay to get like NESDEC to do enrollment projections, which the district hadn't invested in for a while. No, so I don't have any recent NESDEC enrollment projections.
I'd be
If
interested in what
if
the
you'd gone off
cost
the,
is, and if it would be part of our feasibility?
yes, so we'll have to do an enrollment study as part of the feasibility study. Yes, and again, if you would. So for a while, like the Cape superintendents had done, this is in a previous role. I know the Cape superintendents had worked together to do have some, I don't know if it was NESDEC or one of the other consulting groups come in and do a demographic and enrollment projection study on the Cape. And again, I think it was either right at or right before the pandemic. And that enrollment would have told, or that projection would have told you the opposite
Right.
of what.
Well, I think that's why we built the intermediate school for the 980 that you talked about, which was what we had, no more. I mean, the same thing happened with Cape Tech.
Right.
Right? They built Cape Tech not to hold more students, but to hold what they had. So, I don't know, I'd like to see some data with that. But in terms of the feasibility, if we're accepted, I'm trying to remember the years from the acceptance to actually bid. Do you know what the timeline is from the time that you're accepted into the program to when you actually build?
To all the way through the construction project, it's
At least through the beginning, so.
beginning, it's like 2 to 3 years by the time you get invited in, to then you start the feasibility, to then you would have to get like bond approval from the town, and then where you actually have a shovel in the ground. It's a good 2 to 3 year process.
All right,
And then
we'll
you're
have
about
the
5
census to
years
look at.
till the time you're opening a building. From the time you get invited in till the time you're actually open for operations, it's about 5 years.
Okay. Well, I'm very happy to see that the town, the district is doing a capital plan. It has been something that has been a very difficult thing for a multitude of reasons. One of the reasons is I believe, unfortunately, the MSBA incentivizes you to some extent. We're way past that, but to be in a certain condition to be able to participate, which is really unfortunate. Matt, the people who work at Emmy Small deserve better, okay? That's, to me, it's an embarrassment that we actually have our students and employees there. So we definitely need to do something. But, in the most financially responsible way that we can. So to the extent that we can look at the enrollment and really look at where our space is, maybe we have to consider not taking school choice, because you said 4%, that comes to about 127. We're only looking for 350 kids, right? So you look at that and, you look at the space that you already have, and maybe we can make something work. But I think that we have to do our due diligence to ensure our taxpayers, before we move forward with anything, that is the only option. So that's all I ask, but I'm very happy about your capital plan, because it's been very hard for us to, it's been very piecemealed. Unfortunately, like Emmy Small came to us for pieces of the roof many times, but there were no substance behind it for us to be able to say to the taxpayers, this is a good use of your money. There's never been a good plan. So to that piece, I think we need to keep up on it and stay up on it, and I'm thrilled that you're doing that. But we definitely need to do something about Emmy Small. I'm excited to see where we go, and hopefully we get into that program and be able to make some resolution. But again, based on the history and what our taxpayers have been told when we built the last school, I think we have to do it in the most financially responsible way. Thank you. That's all.
Any other comments?
Yep.
Thank you very much for coming this evening.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Our next item on the agenda is the vote regarding 669 Route 28 Park Name Recommendations, the Drive-In Site Utilization Committee.
Hello, Mr. Reed.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
How are we all doing? Ready?
Ready.
Good evening. I'm David Reed. I'm Vice Chairman of the Drive-In Site Utilization Committee. Mr. Saban, our chairman, was unable to be here this evening. Kathy Williams, obviously. When we met with you last time, we discussed the fact that we were coming down to the point where we needed to come up with a formal name for this site in order to promote it and in order to proceed with the development. Kathy Williams did put out a public invitation, if you will, not so much a formal survey, but a request for suggestions. For the names and reasons for them, and received dozens and dozens of suggestions. Our committee has met and reviewed all of those. I think we came down to several premises in terms of our recommendations. First, we decided we did not want to recommend including a contemporary individual's name in it. We wanted to include a geographic component to tell people where it is, and some kind of a descriptive component to tell people what it is. And from that, we distilled down all the names that we received and our own ideas to the 4 suggestions we have before you tonight in our memorandum. We're aware that you've also received a memo from the Historical Commission, which personally I welcome tremendously. I think it's wonderful that they want to put that kind of a sign, informational sign at the site. They've suggested a slight variation on the names that we came up with. Perfectly happy to have you consider that as well. But we do think it's time to come up with a nice descriptive name for the site that will be popular and that will stick and that people can identify with as it goes forward and gets developed and then used. So, as they say, the ball's in your court. Whatever you decide, of course, is the final decision. But we'd like to, either tonight or as soon as you can, come up with a name for the property so that we can continue with our work to promote it and finish the development of this site. It's long overdue.
Any questions, Mark?
I noticed that we got there was an email that came in today from the Chamber of Commerce. Did you see that? Okay. I think it was addressed to me and the town administrator. And I don't know if it went to other, obviously it didn't go to the other board members.
No.
They were suggesting that we put the topic on hold for the time being because of at least the feedback they've been getting about the names that we've been hearing, and suggested that we spend a little bit more time with it, and then after the site is developed, re-engage the public in a discussion about naming. I will admit, me personally, I don't really, I'm somewhat like Chairman Saban. I don't like I'm not particularly a fan of the recommendations that we have before us. I take a very simplistic approach to these kinds of things. You name the site what it is. We've been talking about the site as a boardwalk and an event space, and from my point of view, not calling it a boardwalk or somehow stripping that name from the site and the description or the name of it, I think it would be a mistake. Boardwalks are incredibly popular. That boardwalk, Grays Beach Boardwalk, I mean, that's known by millions of people. The Sandwich Boardwalk, that's an important site. That name Boardwalk means something, and it's very recognizable. So to not use the Boardwalk name is just a problem that I have. So I'm not saying I have a recommendation, but I do think Parkers River and Boardwalk need to be in it, whatever the final name is. And like I said, I haven't seen anything presented to us that sort of jumps out at us. And I think it would be a mistake not to use the Boardwalk name, because when we've talked about this project in the very beginning, it was talked about, in many respects, we use the Boardwalk name quite a bit, and in the presentations, Boardwalk, and I think that's what attracts the public. And I'm trying to think what the best name would be for people driving by, because the idea here is to create a place that not only is an important area for Yarmouth residents, but also an area where visitors would be receptive to coming. I'm not sure if Riverwalk is I agree with Jim Saban's comments that Riverwalk leaves a lot for me to be desired. So I'm not a particularly fan of that name, and the Esplanade name doesn't jump out at me either. So I've always taken the approach: if you don't have the right name or the right solution, sometimes you spend a little bit more time working on it. So from my point of view, I thought the Chamber's suggestion had some merit to it. So I'm sort of in that camp right now.
Did the chamber recommend a name, or just that we
No.
hold off? Okay.
No, I think they had reservations about the name.
I guess I can give you
The name's presented to us as well, so I'm echoing that concern.
two responses. First of all, I think it would be a mistake not to name it in the near future. To wait until it's developed and then see how it's used, it seems to me like that's too late to name it. If we want to promote it, and we want people to look forward to it and plan to use it, I think we need to name it sooner rather than later. As far as the components, you're right, there really are actually three separate facilities there proposed. There's the event space, the old drive-in site itself. There's the Riverwalk Park, which is right along the river, which will have the active developed areas with the restrooms and the parking and the kayak rental. And then there's the boardwalk, which will extend out into the marsh. But we didn't really think of any way to incorporate all of those into a name. You can't name it the
I had Parkers River Boardwalk Park.
Boardwalk Assembly Area. I mean,
Too long?
so many things.
Assembly area, oh, that adds a certain ring.
If we can give something that is a little bit more generic that can incorporate all three, or people will come to know all three, that's fine. But I don't know if any one of them.
If I can gauge, Madam Vice Chair, just in my travels in the community, Riverwalk, I think you have to put that on the table, put it aside for the moment. We've been using that name as a placeholder, and I'm glad we've tagged it a placeholder. But I think folks here are going. I can see an attraction and an instant recognition with the boardwalk name. When Frank Frederickson called it a boardwalk, when he first walked in here and talked about a boardwalk from one end, from the site to the beach, that got everybody's interest in town. That made the newspapers, it got everybody talking. Our meetings, the place was flooded, we had residents, neighbors. That excited people. The name boardwalk was something that excited people. I agree with you, there's a problem. But rather than give up on it, I think we should spend necessary time to figure it out. I'm very comfortable with the Parkers River, recognizing that it's a boardwalk along the river. Parkers River Boardwalk, to me, is a very comfortable name. I'm very comfortable with adding a name to draw attention to the park. As Tracy said, let's call it a park. Maybe you want to give it a name that precedes the name park. Maybe
Parkers River Boardwalk Park.
That's
what I had written down before you started.
There's an option right there, right? Or maybe you want to give the park another name. I mean, there's a way to name this that gets at it. Think at the thrust of what Jim Saban was saying, and maybe what the Chamber's trying to get at as well. Is let's work a little harder on coming up with a name that generates a lot of excitement. I appreciate the survey and getting feedback from folks. I quite frankly was stunned that there were very few references to boardwalk, and to me that said there's something. you know, typically, like when you read polls, public opinion polls, you have to ask yourself, well, the responses were way off because I would have expected more people to make a reference to Boardwalk. Because when I talk to people about the Parkers River Boardwalk, the reaction I get is a positive one, all right? So in my travels in the community, because I've been testing these names. The Esplanade name, that's as much as Jim likes it. God bless Jim. He's worked very hard on this. That's very urban. That's considered. A lot of folks have shied away from that. I've had this conversation with the Historical Commission folks after they presented their recommendations. I asked them, why didn't you call it a boardwalk? And they said, well, you know, some folks thought we may have been enamored with the Riverwalk name. So I don't want to be speaking on behalf of all of these other folks. All I know is that the options that we have before us, at least I don't, I'm not ready to embrace any one of them. But I do like the use of the term boardwalk. I'm glad Tracy likes it as well. I think that's an important part of the name that's got to be there. I think Parkers River makes it easy for us to know which boardwalk we're talking about. I mean, think about it. Yarmouth could have two incredibly popular and notable boardwalks, right? So why not call this Parkers River site a boardwalk? Why not take advantage? It's like having a lighthouse, but not calling it a lighthouse. We're going to call it something else. I think, you know, we call our beaches beaches. We call our, right? We have names that pretty much fit with other sites that are very popular in town. I think the boardwalk is the dominant feature of this particular site. I think it's that aspect of it needs to be accentuated in the title. So I would strongly recommend that whatever recommendation we provide, the boardwalk has to be in it. And I think Parkers River Boardwalk has a nice ring to it. It has a nice, I think it's a place that people are likely to swing by and spend some time at. I'm not suggesting that it only be limited to that. As Tracy said, maybe there's the park name that goes with it. Maybe you want to have, Yarmouth Park or Mattakees Park. I've seen Mattakees as a term used a lot. I have no problem with trying out other names for the park aspect of it, but the boardwalk piece is important to me.
Would you consider including something that said Parkers River Boardwalk and event space to kind of highlight that special events will be happening here? Because I know that maybe the chamber's really interested probably in wanting to highlight that aspect.
That's why I like the park piece still.
Yeah.
That's why I like the Parkers River Boardwalk Park, because it's more than just a boardwalk.
Yeah.
It's a park.
Or you can call it Parkers River Boardwalk and Park.
I think that we're getting, I think that even Parkers River Boardwalk Park is a little bit long. I don't think we want to make it any longer, but I think that flows. That's just me. It has a ring to me. It's something, I'm not 100% like jazzed about it, but I think that out of all the options, that is what keeps coming back to me. Parkers River Boardwalk Park, it takes in
It's got the boardwalk and the park.
all the pieces, and I like it.
Joyce?
Some other variations similar to that, with sort of a other name like park, but we thought Parkers and park was a little bit too
Parky,
awkward.
as Joyce said.
We did consider other names like Commons, Yarmouth Commons or Parkers River Commons or something like that, that suggested something other than just the Riverwalk or just the boardwalk. I'm fine with any of those.
Joyce?
Listening to the two Yarmouth natives at the other end, I mean, it seems to me to combine them would probably be something like Parkers River Boardwalk and Park. But that may be too many words. I'm staying out of the boardwalk thing because I had a quite strange conversation with another resident of South Yarmouth last week, in which I had, coming from the Berkshires, a totally different idea of what a boardwalk was. Didn't grow up near the coast, thought it involved, a big wooden wide promenade, possibly with hot dog and cotton candy stands, maybe some surfboards to be rented. So clearly, I am not plugged into the Yarmouth definition of boardwalk. So I yield to my colleagues and to the Historic Commission and to the town planner. Somebody else can figure it out.
Well, my 2 cents worth. quite frankly, Parkers River Boardwalk Park works for me. Not the Ann Park, just Parkers River Boardwalk Park. I think it has a nice ring to it. It covers all of it, and from what I'm hearing here, I'd entertain a motion.
Is cotton candy involved?
I make a motion that we formally name the former drive-in site of 669 Route 28, Parkers River Boardwalk Park.
And I'll second that.
Okay. Any discussion?
Uh-oh, I hear moans.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 It's
Thank you.
unanimous.
Thank you for all
We
your
have a
work.
name.
Now, that was also one of the surveyed suggestions, and I wonder if we can find that specific survey of, one person suggested that.
Names, there's a whole separate column there. Some people put their names down, so I could look.
We should at least send a thank you letter.
There you go.
I know there's not $1 million.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bingo. We're making big decisions.
Very
tonight.
exciting that this is going to be here before we know it. Okay, special town meeting update.
Okay, we sent home the list as of September 6th for proposed November 19 special town meeting, and I know the board had questions as to whether we had to have a town meeting, that there were things that we had to accomplish. And I think the answer to that is no, but I do want to go over, there's several matters of, I think, pretty significant convenience we should at least be aware of if we want to postpone these articles till the spring. Obviously, there's school resource coverage from the Yarmouth Police Department, and they also have some funding to reduce some of the leases in their cruiser program. And then the third article was this disposition of property at 0 Oak Bluffs Road, which, I mean, I would recommend that not occur, without additional discussion anyways now. And the fourth item was the Station Avenue Elementary Playground replacement, which my understanding is that they're also going to be seeking funding through community preservation as well, which, may lend itself even better to a spring article. The rest of the articles, and I did get some new articles since the 6th, the deadline for submission of the articles was today. Hang on a second. The Parkers River Boardwalk Park does have a bid opening before the 19th for the restroom portion of it, and they had proposed an additional $250,000 for contingency funding. We don't know that we need that, but that was one of the requests. And there's an additional $250,000 that's sought to move the conceptual design for the streetscape improvements for the Route 6A Village Center forward into a 25% design, which we could push on the tip and try to make those streetscape improvements happen faster. That's an item. It could happen in the spring, but we don't want to lose track of that. And then we also have a request for funding for analysis of some of the environmental PFAS threats. And whether we do that now or in the spring, the amount that we're hoping to get is $50,000 to continue that study. That it's a long-standing problem, and we need to get our arms wrapped around it. And I just learned last night about a wastewater project to have an additional $500,000 to do engineering and design for groundwater discharge at the Bayberry Hills Golf Course, which wasn't part of this initial phase, but in that we only have 25% of the groundwater discharge funded or permitted. I mean, we're going to need some additional funding to do the design for Bayberry Hills. And if we did it in the fall, it could speed things up. It could happen in the spring as well. And we also received 2 zoning articles that were submitted for consideration for the fall, and they are The first one is a recalculation of the cash payment in lieu of affordable housing units associated with residential development. It's being calculated in a different manner to provide additional units to the town that is now based on the median home values, which the old formula wasn't. And there's a second zoning that is with respect to seasonal employee housing at motels and hotels, which further restricts that. I think now you're allowed to have relief from the zoning board of appeals to exceed the 15% for a portion of seasonal employee housing at lodging facilities, and this would preclude that process. Both of those zoning articles could wait till the spring, but, those were requested by the planning board. So I guess the bottom line is we don't have to have a November 19 town meeting, but, there are a few items in there that could help us move things forward a little quicker, but there's nothing that's required. So the idea was the board asked before finalizing, is there going to be a November 19 town meeting article? The board wanted to see what articles were there, and that's pretty much the list right now.
Mark?
Yeah, I'd like to weigh in. I think because wastewater is incredibly important for this town, and we are so hard-pressed to get the design of the treatment plant done, and we know DEP is pressing us to explore and evaluate other discharge locations, and I know we're very confident in the plan that we've presented and what we're doing, but I do know that they're making it challenging for us. Rather than debating the merits of this particular article, and we can probably have some time to go into that, but I think that alone almost, to me, becomes an important priority. So I would lean towards doing the town meeting. I'm also concerned about the needed funds for the Parkers River Boardwalk Park. How much money are we talking about, Bob?
It is requested at $250,000, but we don't know if anything is needed.
Where's this money coming from?
Well, it depends what article. The groundwater discharge would be funds that are available in the wastewater enterprise account. We've been doing, the pre-funding very aggressively, so it would be, use a portion of those. The Riverwalk Park, my understanding is that's
Parkers River
requested.
Boardwalk Park.
That's correct. That is a free cash request. And I think also the Route 6A Village Center is a free cash request.
Okay. How much money is left in planning now? When are we going to run out of that? Like, are we going to call a town meeting and still be using old funds?
I found out about this need last night, met today with the finance director, and I also met with the wastewater superintendent. The wastewater indicates there's very little money left in the two accounts that we have is the CWMP account, which is like there's less than 100,000 in that, and then there's also the design funds for the wastewater that those are all committed. I'm being told that there's not enough money in those available accounts
Keep working on it.
to do all of the work that we need to do. Now, the thing is, it's not required this year. I mean, we've got a process. It's
We don't want to stop. That's the thing. I mean, if there's still money to keep
Momentum.
going.
Time is money.
And can we talk about the resource officer? Why is
Now,
this
I think
not in
we're gonna need a lot of discussion on that one, and the chief in here to discuss it. My understanding is that the school department has indicated through, this whole budget and financing thing that we've been through this last year, that they've reduced one of the school resource officers in the intermediate school. And the police department is of the strong feeling that that officer is required. Now, this needs to be worked out jointly with the school department and the police department, but the school department has indicated that they're not funding that. so that if
That's a mistake.
we want it funded,
We
then
want it funded.
Right, so this prompts a separate, you know, I think what we wanted to decide tonight was, do we have a town meeting or not? Right, and it looks like to me we do, but that some of these are gonna need to be more thoroughly vetted and discussed, so I would lean towards doing it and sticking with it and going forward with the special town meeting while we evaluate and go over and vet further the individual articles.
So we're at the point that, if you'd like, our next step is to prepare a draft town meeting warrant, put that on the agenda, go through it article by article, and then you still aren't required to have the town meeting until you execute that, and the same with any of the individual articles that were submitted. But this is just, we wanted to get a flavor of what was out there. Do we do a draft warrant?
Just what you wanted to hear, right, Mary?
Yeah.
I was assuming we were having one, sorry, so.
Okay, good.
Me, the minute you put groundwater on there, because, as I say, time is money, and that's what we seem to be finding. So I wouldn't like to see any delay. And so I will entertain a motion for establishing a special town meeting.
Do we need to vote on this
We
tonight?
don't, that, you've already done.
We already have?
We've already,
So we're all set.
To do is, what I'll do is I'll prepare a draft town meeting warrant, we'll put it on the agenda, the board can review it, and you don't actually call that town meeting until you execute the warrant. The board has already established the date, November 19.
Right.
We've canvassed the departments and boards and committees for potential articles, the deadline was today, we received those, so next step, we'll have it on your agenda with a draft warrant, and then you can still take any actions.
that'll be great. Thanks, Bob.
Sounds like a plan.
That's
Thank
great.
you.
Next item.
Okay, Mary, discussion of our special election.
Mary needs to go take a nap.
I assume we're going to have a little bit of a longer conversation tonight, so. Good evening, Mary Maslowski, Town Clerk. I have sent through the Town Administrator a memo, which is on your agenda, together with, frankly, what were some proposed dates, but they were proposed really so that you could see what the timing would be for nomination papers and others. I will say that since I sent this out, I have spoken to Diane Kane at the Senior Center, and the best date as far as the Senior Center schedule would be the Saturday. It's the date that they would not have to move anything around or not cancel any programs that are already scheduled. And I think it still comes within a decent time frame and gives you a decent time for nomination papers to be out for candidates. Just to clarify for you folks and for those listening, this special election will be to strictly to fill the vacancy created by Chairman Stone's untimely passing. In addition to that, it is only to fill the remainder of his term, which would only go until the May 20th annual town meeting. So it's a 6-month.
Town election.
Town election.
Town election, I'm sorry, thank you. Annual town election on the third Tuesday in May, which I believe is the 20th of May. So it is strictly to fill the vacancy for 6 months. Being that I know there has been a lot of discussion about November 5th being a wonderful day to try and do a dual election. Even if the timing worked out, it is really not. It would cost the town significantly more money to hold a dual election. For me, it is actually 2 elections. It's 2 check-ins. We don't have the sufficient amount of poll pads to do check-in for both elections at the same time. We would, and frankly, to have 2 ballots out there, to me, jeopardizes the accuracy of the presidential election. It leaves too many opportunities for people to put the wrong ballot in the wrong envelope. And if somebody, by mistake, which will happen, put 2 ballots in the same envelope or puts them in the incorrect ballot envelope, we will have no choice but to reject their ballot for their presidential election. So to me, the presidential election results are too important to jeopardize with having a second ballot out there. So that is the primary reason that I've requested that you, when you vote to set your election date, that you also vote to waive vote by mail for the special election only. I understand that people,
Even for Saturday?
even for a Saturday, because that second ballot would be, potentially would be out there when the general election ballot is still out there. Those general election ballots
I see.
would be November 5th, so we'd be mailing them right at about the same time, so it would still be a tough call. And our vote by mail, to be honest, right now, the cards for the November general have not gone out. They're going out in the next couple of weeks from the state, Secretary of State's office. As of right now, we already have close to 6,000 ballots that we have to mail.
Wow.
So that's,
What percentage of that is that half
so,
the voters in town?
no, we have 22,000
Okay,
registered voters.
sorry.
But
Quarter.
So it's
for
25%.
2020 For the,
A lot.
for the presidential election in 2020 in November,
Mhm.
we processed 11,000. I don't think we'll have quite that many, but for the primary, we mailed out 5,500, and we processed about 2,500 that came back, and realized that outgoing expense is the expense to the town. The incoming expense gets paid by the state. We do calculate all of that postage to get reimbursed, but we do have to have the funds to be able to do the mailing. So, another reason why November 5th wasn't a great idea, because we would have been mandated for 2 weeks of in-person early voting. We would have been mandated for a vote by mail, and anybody that had signed up to get a presidential ballot would also have to get the special ballot. So.
Tracy, you had a comment?
Yeah, I'm okay with all of those things on a Saturday, but I do believe personally that if you are going to waive the early voting and mail voting, that I don't think that we should constrict the hours.
Understood.
I don't know what the additional cost is, but, Saturdays for a lot of families, and it's probably going to be a low turnout. But for a lot of families, they have, school events, sporting events, things like that. So the more time I think that we can give them, if we can't let them vote in mail.
For me, that was a suggestion as a way to somewhat reduce costs, and also.
What is?
So what's the time frame, Tracy, that you're recommending?
Recommend a regular time.
7 to 8.
7 a.m. to 8 p.m.
I mean, if
On
you're
that
not gonna,
Saturday.
just to make sure that everybody has the opportunity, if we're not going to allow it.
I'm
'Cause I think
comfortable with that.
we've done that for special elections before. With a district election, I think we condensed it for the Cape Tech School. We reduced the hours. I don't know what the cost difference is, but I just.
So one of the things that we could do, and one of the things that was suggested by our elections equipment supplier. So for me, the general election doesn't really get wrapped up for 30 days. So we could reduce the polling locations. We could only have it at the senior center if we wanted to. We would change polling locations for 2 precincts, the 2, 1 and 7 in Yarmouth Port, for the special election only. It would require a mailing, but we could certainly get that accomplished. And then we'd only be staffing the one location with adequate staff and police officers. We can also look at using, programming our machines so that the tabulators can take ballots from any precinct and still report on different precincts.
I'm not jazzed
So
about that.
it'd almost be like a vote center.
I think personally, the least that we move that kind of thing around, because it confuses people. I don't know, I mean, if you're gonna have to do a mailing anyway and then you condense it, you're still spending some money. I don't know what
Yeah,
the.
it's all contingencies. That's what's available.
Personally, I would keep them where they are and I would have a full day of
I'll
voting.
be back to you for that anyway. That's all part of the warrant. So right now, for tonight, it's setting a date, determining whether you're willing to waive vote by mail. And if that's the case, then we'll make sure all of the polling locations are available, and then we'll make that all a part of the warrant when we come back with the warrant for the election.
So do you have a recommended motion for us?
So I didn't draft one. It would, and my apologies for that, it would just be to vote to set a special election to fill the vacancy on the select board, to fill the vacancy created by Mr. Stone's passing, and to waive vote by mail for that election only.
And only the date and not the times for that.
The date only, correct.
Okay.
The date is
But your
what's
motion
set.
didn't have a date.
No, I make a motion that we call a special election to fill the vacancy of the board for December 7th and to waive the mail-in voting.
Is that good?
That's good with me.
Okay, I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Mary.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mary.
I will follow up with our traditional, all things election related and
Yeah,
warrants.
you got some busy
Busy
times
woman.
coming up.
Okay, though. Thank you very much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you, Mary.
Busy year.
So that leaves,
Mary, the
nomination
November
papers.
polling locations?
What's
So
that?
The only thing I was going to address on that is we are exploring options for fall elections. I don't know if it's possible. The police chief and I have had some conversations, particularly about the senior center and what we need to do to be able to sustain that volume on a general election. The superintendent, his office has reached back out. We're going to try and meet and see if there are any possibilities at any other locations, but
What about the overflow at Old Town House? I mean, there's an overflow there's a walking path right between them.
it's always a possibility. We might, depending on what the weather's like in November, though, we may have to talk about a shuttle for that. So the police chief and the deputy chief and I have had those conversations.
I think
So-
a shuttle has to be part of the discussion, just to play it safe. I think you've got to keep I would recommend exploring that option, the costs, drivers, and everything, and have that ready to go, because I agree with Tracy. I think having the ability to shuttle people at that parking lot would be something that I think some people would definitely want to take advantage of, particularly if we had signage there, letting people know that, because I think word's getting out there that the senior center is going to be kind of crazy. And I think if people knew that they can get a shuttle bus, and we had several buses moving people from the senior center to there, I think folks would take advantage of it.
So what we've done for the past couple of elections was kind of work out a better traffic flow along with the police department. We know that we have to have somebody on
Yeah.
duty.
Well, if you
to
can
be able
pull
to
that
direct
off,
the traffic.
we'll send you over to the schools on Station Ave.
You can come on over to the intermediate school.
That is a wish list, so that is, hopefully the superintendent and our team can have some discussions and
Yeah.
we'll be able to make that.
I also think, as Tracy mentioned, that walking area, that walking path, if it was sufficiently lit,
Yeah.
you know,
Maybe get
and,
some
that might also
rental lights
be
and a-
helpful, so we might have to rent lights, yeah.
And ask people that can walk to park over there.
Or we may be able to rent lights from other towns. When I worked in Brewster, we had some huge town meeting activity. We had specials with marijuana on the warrant, and we got over 1,000 people, well over 1,000 people showing up at town meetings. So we had the lights all over the parking lot because.
We do have light stanchions that
we do?
we can use that are available, both, I believe DPW and the fire department have them.
Yeah.
We have talked about that walking path. I'm not sure how clear it is currently. It may need some brush cutting.
It will need brush cutting. It will need, from a safety point of view, you're gonna wanna have,
So there are two different things.
You may
The
even
department
want
does have a golf cart that they can use.
Maybe
if they
the-
need a shuttle bus.
yeah, I think it might require some work, but we've got a DPW staff that's very, very capable.
We've
Yeah.
had those discussions over the past year on any number of occasions. So everything is still in play for November. It's just a matter of exploring all options.
Yeah, well, I know you're very committed to the senior center and doing that there. I get that. I understand that. I'm not a fan of a November election at the senior center, but if you're going to do it, you have to think about shuttle buses.
Committed to
You
getting-
have to.
I'm committed to reducing the number of polling locations as much as possible.
And I think the least that you move them around, we've already done that to these people.
That gets
And
Yeah.
I think it's very confusing for people. You can't say at one time they go here and the next time they go
Right.
there, because they'll be at the
Right.
other place and confused, so
Well, there are requirements for me. If we move polling locations, one, it requires a vote of your board, first and foremost. I can't just move them. It requires
understand.
a select board action.
I understand.
And it requires notice. So, which we have done in every occasion, and I will certainly make my commitment to you that if heaven forbid we do start moving locations again, that it is adequately out there to everyone and in every means
Yeah.
possible.
And Tracy mentioned golf carts, that's, if we can make sure that that pathway between the parking lot, that townhouse parking lot, and works, having shuttle golf carts moving people through that area. I just think it's going to need a heavy police presence for traffic management, multiple options, and definitely a shuttle bus system has to be available. It may not get, it may be utilized, by some people, but I think this is one of the things where you need to have sort of all options available and at your disposal.
So I know the police department does have I believe a 6-seater.
We just licensed a gentleman tonight that might be able to help you.
They're saying December, though, unfortunately.
Yeah, so, we have to hope that there's not snow and that it's not freezing and that there's not ice on the road and all of those other things that I have to factor in anyway when it's,
I know.
When it comes to it.
I know.
Whether we need to do
Well
heavy
lit,
response, whether we.
plenty of
whether we don't.
security. Yeah.
I wish we had this type of response for local elections. I feel like there's so much more impactful than something that's national, but yet it's like backwards. More people vote in something that really.
Well, if you want golf carts for the special municipal election,
I wish we did have that
Yeah.
problem, but we don't.
Well,
And that's my way of looking at the reduced hours, was really, what is our turnout gonna be?
I know.
When it's following up on a busy year where we've had
But my concern,
an annual 2 primaries and a general.
my concern, Mary, when it comes to the reduced hours is the fact that there are a lot of people in this town that work on Saturdays. And in working on Saturdays, people usually either have a day shift, an evening shift, or a night shift. So by giving them the opportunity from 7 in the morning till late at night, you're kind of covering those shifts.
So one thing I do just want to point out, I also want to just point out the difference between vote by mail, which is no excuse, versus absentee voting. Anybody that would not be available for the election, as soon as the ballots come in, they're welcome to come in and vote at the counter. We would still mail absentee ballots out. We just wouldn't mail the no excuse vote by mail ballots, which is
Right.
a whole different animal. It's those persons saying that I am not available to come into the election for whatever reason it is. Those ballots are still available. It's the no excuse, like the convenience of having the ballot mailed to me that wouldn't go out. So
Being
I don't
December,
want to pretend that there isn't, there certainly is still an opportunity for somebody who can't attend on a Saturday from 10 to 6, that if they wanted to, they could still come into the office, they could still request a mailed ballot. That we can't change. It is only the vote by mail, no excuse option.
Right,
in
but
December, there's a lot of snowbirds, so we're gonna need
say a
that.
lot of people will be away
Right.
just because of the time of year.
Right, and and then those persons, if they like and can, they certainly have a valid reason to fill out an absentee ballot application.
Okay.
And that's certainly a communication we can make.
Okay.
So, it isn't that that there's only live voting, it is just that mailed out ballots are significantly reduced by not having that.
Can I ask you a really random question about nomination papers? On the back of nomination papers, there is a thing there that you can put somebody's name. What is the significance of that? And did Mike have anybody in that spot?
From the last,
Me, when I had those.
from the last election, I do not recall them. I can pull his old nomination papers, but I believe that is only if the nominee passes before the election.
I see.
I don't believe it has anything to do with post-election.
Okay.
This would still be treated as a vacancy. I
Correct.
believe it's a situation like, there's a nomination, they pass away, their name's still on a ballot, on like a primary, and then someone can then be nominated to take their place on a general.
It actually happens a lot.
That's my understanding of it. I will certainly get more clarification on that, though, Tracy, and
Okay.
follow up. But I do not recall him having anything written on his.
Okay.
And
If you could,
and like I said, I don't think it would make a difference in this instance anyway.
can we just be sure?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Mary.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Board and committee actions to our appointment chair.
Okay, we have several. The really saddest one is the resignation of Sandy Cashin, longtime facilities manager at the Dennis Yarmouth School District, from Energy Committee. I move that we give her a big round of thanks and accept her resignation. And I put in a little commercial here. Energy Committee is short on people. People with facilities maintenance experience and engineers are especially appreciated. So if anyone listening knows anyone, send them along.
Okay, do I have a second on that nomination?
Oh, it's accepting the resignation.
Accepting the
Accept
resignation.
resignation with thanks.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Next.
Okay, then reappointments to Planning Board. Jim Saban.
Are we going to do the Conservation Commission?
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry.
The next item on the agenda is
It says
Conservation
appointments,
Commission.
Conservation Commission.
Are we doing?
Do I have to do them in that order?
Right.
Only
Oh,
because our packets,
sorry, did
our
not know.
packets in that
Okay.
order.
After a successful interview, I suggest that Bradford Bauer be appointed to the Conservation Commission.
Do I have a second on that?
That's a motion, right, Joyce?
Yes.
Through June of 2027.
Expired through 6/27.
I'll second that. If it
Okay,
hasn't been seconded,
okay.
just put that out there.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I find it interesting that we cross off the town that they live in on the application, as if that's not important, but that's just me. We've
Yeah.
been down this road, I don't know how many times.
Yeah, we have.
I don't understand.
Yeah.
Maybe I talk to you about best practices later. I'm open to suggestion.
Well, knowing that they live in Yarmouth is kind of important.
We just want to make sure they live in Yarmouth, that's all.
That's all.
Okay.
So we're counting on you, Joyce,
Well,
to
I'll follow
vet
them home
all
some
that.
night and
Yeah,
make
there you
sure.
go, bingo.
If I'm in jail as a stalker, you'll bail me out.
No,
right?
but there's,
Town funds?
no, but this has been,
It's
I just,
important. No,
I'm not suggesting it's not important. We've had a problem. We had a problem once before, and let me just, let me just leave it at that, okay?
Okay.
So, it's important to vet it. Thank you.
And actually, when I was appointment chair, it came up for me, when I was interviewing people, that I discovered that one of the people that had applied was not a resident of Yarmouth.
Right.
Which
Okay.
immediately didn't allow them to be part of it.
So maybe one should scrutinize if one has an address that's only a post office box.
I think that's a good sign that it's at least worth inquiring. Yeah. Now, we have, I think, maybe on a rare occasion, appointed somebody who was not a
They
resident,
had to
but
have an
that's,
exemption, though.
Yeah.
And it
Then we
was,
made the move here, right?
it was,
we made that, they were forced to move, yes. No, but it's definitely, it's something that's easily overlooked. That's why it's worth highlighting it for you.
Okay,
Okay?
thank you. I will keep an eye. Some more reappointments to the.
And you want to make sure that you put in for the amount of,
Oh,
which
for the
came up
dates?
before,
Oh,
yeah.
oh, duh. Okay, my screen is too small here for me to read, so I should have printed these out. Community and Economic Development Committee, I move that we appoint Joe Gibbs and Joseph Manning for 3-year appointments, which will run through July 2027.
Do I have a second?
And those are reappointments, correct?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, and then, yep. Yes, what I started with before. I move that we reappoint Jim Saban and Peter Slovak to the Planning Board. These appointments are for a 3-year term, which will run through July 2027.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed unanimously. Thank you. That's all of yours? Thank you.
Yep.
We have the minutes for the September 26, 2023.
Now, Madam Vice Chair, I noticed that many of these minutes, it's either, I think there are only 2 members of the current board, so what I'm suggesting is that the other members can vote out of necessity, which is a procedural opportunity for us in order to pass. So you can vote for these out of necessity, okay?
I don't know, even though you were not present.
Even though you were not present.
Oh, gotcha, yeah.
Right.
Okay, yeah.
So for the purposes of passing. So I would like to move that we approve, and I'm going to take them up, we have to vote individually.
Individually, yes.
So I'm going to move that we approve the minutes of September 26th, 2023.
I'm going to second that.
Okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, any
Madam
opposed?
Vice Chair, I move that we approve the minutes of November 28th, 2023.
I second that. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay,
Madam Vice Chair, I move that we approve the minutes of December 5th, 2023.
and I second that. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Madam Vice Chair, I move to approve the minutes of August 6th, 2024.
I second. All those in favor?
Aye. Madam Vice Chair, I move to approve the minutes of August 20, 2024.
I second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Moving on to agenda items.
Meeting next week,
What's that?
Number 17.
September 17, our next meeting, and some of the highlights we do have on there, the Cape Light Compact, the road construction update for our communication with the businesses, and the Matakees Utilization Committee appointment process. And also to approve the selectmen's goals
Selectmen's what?
Goals.
Okay,
established.
sounds good.
I think that's a pretty
Yep, sounds good
good
to me.
agenda.
I don't have any recommendations. I'm ready to move on.
To the board, no? Okay, October 1st.
I was just going to put in a plug for a future
October
agenda.
1st, what are we
Is
talking?
that not necessarily next
No,
week?
okay, no.
No.
We're set with the September 17th. We're looking at October 1st. If you want to put a plug in for something to be done October 1st,
Mine
or
is,
you could,
plug for, like, say, one of the next 2 months of meetings, so however you'd like me to present it.
okay. Well, I think for us, the next 2 meetings we have coming up, it's September 17th, October 1st.
Are swamped.
We'll have the review of the special town meeting warrant. That's going to consider
Yep.
discussion for those articles. So I think we need to set some time aside for that. Improve the election warrant.
That October 1st agenda looks fine to me. I don't think we need to change anything.
I think that is pretty hefty as it is.
More stuff. I don't want to overload them.
No.
Because we get things that we have to put on, then all of a sudden it's like a huge.
No, I think we should, I'm comfortable with the upcoming meetings and the agendas, Madam Vice Chair. I think we can move on to the next item on the agenda.
All righty. And what item did you want to add in, Joyce?
I know that this is a very busy season for the town, as we just saw with the discussion about the special election and the national election and the special town meeting. But I'd like to have a prospective volunteer fair to meet the committee chairs and maybe some members of committees with some refreshments, posted for a time that would bridge daytime and evening, something like 4 to 6. And I do the logistics for it, but I think we're so far down in terms of volunteer committee members that would be a way to attract people. And
Okay.
in some ways, if we're not doing that until late October or November, we drop away some of the snowbirds.
Right. Okay, well, I would say that we can bring that up as a consideration, say at our October 1st meeting.
Great.
Okay?
Okay.
Consider it for a future agenda item, because we have no agenda items set after October 1st. Oh, I'm sorry, we do, October 29th. Thank you, Joyce. Okay. Consent agenda.
I think you're going to go through, aren't we going to do individual items?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, we are. Mark?
Individual items. I don't want to sound too picky or cranky, but I found today's licensing discussion very, very confusing. What I'd like to recommend is that, and it may very well be, I'd like to go back to prior times when I chaired the select board. What I would do is, and I'd like to suggest this and recommend this because I think it might make it easier, particularly for people like me to follow. I would turn over the whole section of the licensing, the reading of the notice, the reading of everything,
To
the
the
engaging.
licensing chair?
Just take what I would recommend for the future meeting
Yeah,
is
just
that.
hand that over to
is
Tracy.
just basically, I want to turn this portion of
That's
our
fine.
agenda over to the licensing chair, and then let Chase run literally from each one of the hearings.
Okay.
And then open it up, close the hearing, handle,
Yep, I'm with you. That
all right?
sounds great.
That
Perfect.
lightens the load for you.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
All right.
That's fine. And
I
it
used to-
runs better.
Well, the thing is your experience has been with Mike being chair and licensing chair.
Right.
And so what he would do as doing both
Yeah.
is he would do kind of everything.
Yeah.
And so before he was the chair, when I was the chair, what I would do literally is
Turn it over to Mike.
I turn over, okay, now that we're going into licensing, I'm going to turn this portion of our agenda or our meeting over to the licensing chair. Mr. Stone, would you handle it? And then he would basically, and then when he was done, when he came to the end, he would turn the meeting back over to me.
That's fine.
So I'd like to suggest that for the next meeting, we try to do that.
That
Good.
sounds good. Do you have anything else?
Nope, that's it.
Tracy?
I'm good, thanks.
Joyce, you brought up your volunteer.
Yep, I'm good.
You're good, and I'm good as well. Okay, consent agenda. Do I have a motion to accept the consent agenda?
So moved.
Can I just ask a question about it, though? Guess I'm a little bit, I'm fine with the majority of the requests. What I'm concerned about is the request for the insurance waiver. And what is the rationale that we ask for this, and what exposure do we have by doing that? Because I don't know if we've ever waived somebody's, unless it's a town event.
Right, and this is a charity event, and they say that they want to devote all of the money to charity.
And
The only difference is we have exposure. The town does carry a liability insurance policy. So if we did get a lawsuit around this event,
It would be our insurance and not
it
theirs?
would be our insurance and not theirs. So there is some risk to that, and
Well, could I stop you right there? Didn't she say that she was getting them all to sign waivers?
The waiver's here, but I'm just wondering, I worry about precedent, okay? Because she has waivers, the next person could come in and ask for the same waiver, we have our own insurance. I just think that, I hate for them as a charity to have to purchase this. What I worry about is not saying something now, and then the next three people say, well, you waived it for them.
well, it's not overly expensive to get the insurance certificate, so.
And I appreciate the waiver. I just don't know, I'm not a lawyer. I just don't know if our practice is going to be not to ask for them, then that's one thing and we're gonna cover it, but it's just,
And that's why it's on the agenda, because we don't waive them.
right. And I don't personally believe that we should for liability purposes, but that's me. And I hate to say that because I know they're a charity event, but we can't waive it for one person.
Do they sign a form
It's right
waiving?
here. This is it. This
The
is.
form that they sign?
This is what they want their participants to sign, which I
That doesn't help the town. That our insurance carrier recommends that we have a waiver on the special events.
Unfortunately, I would suggest that especially if that's what our insurance recommends. Unfortunately. I hate to take my.
So they're going to sign a consent and release form? All the participants? And that's, I just want to make sure I understand exactly what we're doing here.
We're not doing anything. They're trying to get the town to waive the insurance requirement that we ask for anybody who uses the town.
I understand that.
facility.
I understand that.
In lieu of that, I think that they're trying to
Pitch
get them
this.
to- Yes.
The consent and release form.
Which is what they did last year.
Yeah, we did this before. It worked out well.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's fine as long as there's no
May even
claims,
been
but it
2
doesn't
years that they've
substitute
done it.
for the insurance certificate. Like, you can't say that, oh, I signed the waiver form, so I can't sue the town.
I understand.
Doesn't work like that.
I just worry about the town's exposure, that's all. And if it's not that much money, I personally think that, again, we have if you guys have done it before, I didn't know about it. I have never done that sitting here, but.
Yeah, I think we did this for them last year.
We did.
Yeah. So,
As long as you're prepared to do
Yep.
that for everybody.
no, not for everybody, for those charitable groups that might ask for it.
Do I have a motion
Do
on
we
the?
need a
Yeah, I
policy
get-
on that? Sorry.
I think we make the decision.
We make the
Yeah,
decision
the
we
question
did
is,
last year.
if you want a policy, feel free to draft one, and we can talk about it as a.
I mean, it's kind of like an outlet. We have a policy in the office. We deal with these events all the time. We don't waive it. If it's going to be waived, it has to be waived by the board.
Right.
But then this board needs to understand, though, the risk that they're taking by doing that.
Right.
That's what I'm,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's exposing the town.
Yeah. And I'm comfortable that they're signing consent and, you know,
Right.
they're all signing release forms, which is a common practice. I mean, when we send our kids to Boston on field trips, what do parents do? That's what they sign, right? They don't require, you know, so it's a common practice. I think for us to say waive it on a charitable event like this, I'm comfortable with it. But I'm also open, if someone wants to set a policy and lay out the parameters, that's fine too.
I'm not,
I'm brand new at this, so I just, I'd like us to do it in the way that was clearest to the public as well
Sure.
as ourselves.
I'm very comfortable with it. I move that we approve the consent agenda,
Do I have a second?
can we take it separate?
each item.
Well, I mean, just move that one, because I'm not gonna support that, but I'd support the rest of the consent agenda. It's no disrespect to them, again, we have a job to cover the town, and
I move that we approve the pickleball, let's put it this way, I move to approve the consent agenda, items B, C, and D on our agenda.
There you go. Second?
All right.
Second?
I don't know what that is, so I have to go back to the agenda.
That's without the.
That's everything without that
Okay,
one.
all right,
right.
second.
B, okay, we got a second on that.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Madam Vice Chair, I move to approve consent agenda item 1A, the request from the Pink Ribbon Pickleball.
I'll second that. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
Opposed.
Doesn't pass.
No. There you go.
Okay,
They'll
so
have
they
to
won't
get a-
be,
They'll have to get an insurance.
they'll have to get insurance. Okay.
You asked for a fee waiver and insurance. Do you split that vote, or?
No, the fee waiver was fine. The fee waiver passed separately.
No, that's, that.
There's one request.
It's
That was
within-
one request and one overall thing, so I am going to sort of ask,
Amend
I'm
your-
going to amend my motion to, I move to approve the request from the Pink Ribbon Pickleball Group to waive the court fee.
Second.
Okay, we got
In favor?
Aye.
Aye.
and I'm not going to take up the rest.
Yep.
Okay,
There you
just
go.
leave it as is.
Just leave it there.
Okay?
Yep,
That,
that's fine.
we okay now? Bob, you okay with that?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, you want to move to the next item? Okay, quickly, in your packet is the letter from the Cape Cod Assembly of Delegates indicating the County Charter Commission is starting up, and they're looking for municipal officials to serve on that, and there's a deadline of September 21 to get recommendations to the Assembly Clerk, Owen Fletcher. So if there's anyone interested in serving on that, let us know. Maybe we can put it on the agenda next week for a vote to have the full board recommend it. But do look at that. I have.
Can I just, while you're on that item,
No, it's my time now.
okay.
No, you can go, Mark.
No, but in terms of the charter review, there's also been other discussion of the county needing a more thorough charter review.
Mhm.
And that would involve going back to almost the beginning where there was an original charter commission, each town elected someone. See, right now, each town, there'll be a charter review committee, but not each town is represented. The assembly decides who will be on this review committee. And they're only going to pick a handful of municipality representatives, and they will pick them.
It's one from the Mid-Cape, so one person between Barnstable, Dennis, and Yarmouth.
Right, right. There is another process. The other process is that, like in Yarmouth, every so many years, we've gone through a charter review where there's a committee that's been on the ballot. They get elected, they're appointed, they come up with their recommendations. They take their recommendations directly to the ballot in Yarmouth, and the voters decide. I just want you to be aware, there's been discussion among the commissioners about doing the same thing.
But not yet.
At the county, not yet, but I see it coming, so that what it means is each town will have a voice in discussing. I'm a believer that every town should if we're going to be doing a charter review, every town should have a say. And the town should pick who that person is, not some other group of county officials. That the town should do that, because these charters are documents that are essentially the governing, and they represent what the powers that the people of the region decide.
Right.
So it may very well be that this group convenes and comes together, but it isn't truly fully representative of the county and the people. So just letting you know, there's another option. This commissioner has talked about pursuing that long before they presented this.
But it doesn't say in here that it has to be a select board member. It just has to, we have to just put somebody, we could put anybody forward to represent the town, right? So,
Everything is
I'm just curious.
If you look at the ordinance, it's relatively vague. That's just it. So, whereas the other provision of an elected charter commission is governed by a state statute. Each town, picks their own. They do it at the ballot box, and they convene.
It has to be a person within the town. It doesn't say anything.
And again, they do the picking. The speaker does from the assembly. So, just FYI, I'm not suggesting people don't participate or what. I'm just letting you know that it's a very different type of process. They've done this a couple of times, and the recommendations, there's been questions as to how much public involvement. So I don't know how much public involvement, community involvement they plan in this. Like I said, the overall measure is relatively vague. That's what, like I said, prior to this being presented to the towns, I had been suggesting that we actually go through a more formal elected process. We've had the current charter for 40 years. It's worth a good look. There have been numerous, we've had an abundant number of committees convened to come up with recommendations that have gone nowhere because the assembly hasn't been interested in supporting them. So I've suggested that what we do is we consider maybe going back to an elected, more formal process where each town can pick someone and they have a say, and their recommendations will go directly to the voters regardless of what any county official has to say. So it's a more independent, and that's a much more independent, much more public process. There has to be a report. For example, there's a ballot question that the assembly has put on the ballot that hasn't gone through any vetting by any charter review committee.
That's the one increasing the salary to 3,000 and dropping the benefits, or I've read about that in the paper, but I'm unsure about it.
Yeah, that's the what they want. What they've been talking about doing is they want to basically have more powers in terms of controlling the budget. The assembly does, and they've also been openly talking about a pay raise and more staff. The commissioners have been fighting the assembly because we don't need to pay raises and more full-time staff for the assembly. So we've been basically at odds. So this this ballot question is an attempt for them to get more power over the budget and the county's finances in order for them to have more staff and increase their pay. So if they get pay, we're talking about a $5,000 stipend, which would make them, which would make them eligible for a pension. So we've been kind of like saying, no way. So, so that's what's on the ballot in November, all right? So they've got a measure on the ballot this November that had, I challenge anyone to find a report, a set of recommendations, some document that's been through any public vetting process that sort of explains what this thing is all about. Because you won't find a report. Whereas these things should be done open, transparent. There should be representatives from each of the town chosen by the people of the town. They should develop a report that's submitted and available, easy to access. So this whole business of charter review at the county is turning into a controversial topic, unfortunately.
But for this particular one, Bob, are you saying that you need a name?
No, all I'm saying is that they sent a letter to you. I didn't want them saying we.
I just want you to be aware of what you might be walking into.
Okay.
All right? It's not as clean.
Okay, Bob, next.
Thanks for the clarification.
Sorry about that.
No, it's important. So we've reached a real watershed moment to protect our watershed on our wastewater project that throughout this entire process, we've been living in this abject, fear of this huge bid for the wastewater treatment plant coming up and whether that was going to be within the town's budget and appropriation. I've got great news that last Friday we opened up the bids and they're within the budget estimates that we have for the wastewater project. So that puts us in business to move forward and complete phase one. So I think it's time a little bit to at least celebrate that milestone with the knowledge that we still have contracts 5 and 6 currently out to bid. And we're going to be getting those numbers in, I think, over the next few weeks. And we still also have some unknown costs for that extra discharge that we have to do the design work on as well. So we're not 100% out of the woods, but the one nut that was the $100 million nut, that those bids could have came in $150 million and just blew phase one completely out of the water. But we do have the wastewater bids in, and so things are moving forward on that project very well. And I also wanted to mention that I know at your next meeting we're going to have an update on the communication piece, working with everyone, but there's a tremendous amount of work going on right now. In fact, on Thursday morning, September 12th at 9 a.m. right here in this room, sponsored jointly with the Chamber of Commerce and our whole communications team, police department, DPW, and communications, we're going to have a special in-person meeting for all members of the business community, really targeting that Route 28 group to come in, talk about the whole process. We've had separate meetings with some of the lodging, Red Jacket. We had a great meeting with the Five Star Bus Company that Dorcas was tremendously helpful getting the whole school administration, everyone on board. And so in addition to all of the social media and website and the ways and the emails, the blasts and all of that, we're trying to have as many in-person one-on-one meetings with everyone as well. And so that's moving forward as well, and we'll talk more about that at your next meeting. And I also wanted to let board members know that the wage and classification plan that you funded and supported, we're moving forward with a kickoff for that program, and we've had a detailed procurement process, and we've gone through and analyzed all the bids and selected a consultant. And so we're starting up that process now. The two key elements that we're going to develop some data and come back and review with the Board of Selectmen is, first and foremost, to update, and it hasn't been done in over 20 years, our entire classification system that sets the relative comparisons internally in the organization among all of the positions, and to make sure that all of the job descriptions are completely updated with the best practices. the whole classification system is well organized and makes sense. And then the second piece is to survey the market area, analyzing the data for our external comparison, to have the goal of ensuring that the wages that we offer are competitive. I mean, not the highest, lowest, but competitive in our labor market area for those classifications and the duties, and that we have an equitable system that compares positions to positions. And the first key things are going to be to meet with all of the individual employees, the units, department heads, groups, and then they'll be working on filling out questionnaires, and we'll be working with department heads to update all the job descriptions. And so that process is moving forward, and as soon as we begin to develop some additional information and data, we're going to be right into the Board of Selectmen to share that information and to review it and discuss it, and then move forward. And I also wanted to alert the board on September 23 to 25, I'll be in attendance. The International City Management Association has their annual conference. It's going to be located in Pittsburgh this year. And that's the #1 professional development opportunity for municipal managers, and I generally attend that every year. So look forward to your support on that, and that's a couple of days, the 23rd to the 25th. And then I'll be back in...
Is there a Steelers game while you're there?
You know, they're actually...
that would be nice.
I'll bet it's sold out, but maybe you can scalp some tickets.
Oh, that's illegal, Bob.
I've been to Heinz Field, and it is a very
city.
exciting place.
It's a nice city, Pittsburgh. Great.
So that's all I had.
Motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.